Chapter 44:10. Emolienne rolled her eyes at him and got straight to the point. What do you think is on the island? A barrier. A barrier. It's that kind of ancient natural barrier. Ding Yun nodded and said, there's a problem with the space. Otherwise, how could 20,000 elites disappear without a trace? That's right. Even if someone launched a sneak attack with so many people, it should be earth-shattering. Mu Xingqian nodded, deeply finding it reasonable. Emolienne responded with a thump. He suddenly stood up and floated to Arbor's side in a flash, reaching out to support her body. His movements were light and gentle, and his phoenix eyes seemed to overflow with gentleness. Mu Xingqian rolled his eyes at his back and grumbled, didn't you just say not to disturb her and let her have some peace and quiet? In the end he floated over himself in less than a quarter of an hour. Emolienne naturally heard his brother-in-law's grumbling, but he was disinclined to retort. Although he was sitting here talking to Ding Yun and the others, his gaze kept drifting towards Jojo. When he saw the little fellow lying on the railing and nodding her big head, he knew she was dozing off. He hastily floated over to support her. When he looked down and saw that the little stoic was already drowsy and half awake, he couldn't resist chuckling. Mu Xingqian also hastily moved over. Younger sister, she's been tired from the day. I'll take her to rest. Let's talk about it tomorrow. Oh, eldest brother-in-law replied dryly. Emolienne lifted the little stoic up bridal style and briskly walked towards the stairs. Sikong Fuling silently glanced at them and reflexively looked at her elder brother's expression. However, she saw her elder brother's deep gaze but didn't say a word. Just as Emolienne reached the steps next to the stairs, he suddenly dodged to the side and lifted his leg to kick something. That thing was like a ball as it flew far away and landed softly on the table in front of Mu Xingqian. Mu Xingqian looked down and his expression abruptly changed. He stood up and summoned his sword from his conscious. It's that dragon. What? Sikong Fuling jumped in fright and hastily dodged behind him. Is it the blood-patterned black dragon that fought with the black dragon at the bottom of the sea? That blood-patterned black dragon left a deep impression in everyone's mind. The battle between the two dragons and the might of the holy beast was still fresh in everyone's minds. Everyone looked at the dragon lying on the table in astonishment. It was as long as a forearm and as thick as a finger. It looked like a worm, completely lacking the might of a black dragon. After being kicked by Emolienne earlier, it was still lying limply on the ground, unable to catch its breath. Everyone was speechless as they turned to look in Emolienne's direction. That old man didn't even look at Xue Wenlong as he carried his chow up the stairs and left. Everyone looked sympathetically at the goods lying on the table. Which corner did you crawl out from? Mu Xingqian withdrew the sword in his hand, thinking that he had been too nervous just now. They had seen this blood-patterned dragon with their own eyes. It seemed to have flown out of their little sister's inner world. Was it their little sister's personal sacred beast? What's wrong with you? Sikong Fuling couldn't help but ask, feeling that the little worm was a little pitiful. She raised her head and looked at the people in front of her with her watery eyes, ignoring them. Following that familiar feeling in its memory, it wriggled down to the ground and swam in the direction of Arbor. Hungry, so hungry, master, I'm hungry. Everyone was speechless as they watched this fellow wriggle up the stairs and chase after Arbor with tears in its eyes. See you tomorrow at 4 p.m. Chapter 44:11. Sikong Fuling stared at it in astonishment for a moment before rubbing her nose. It can't be that it's so hungry that it can only crawl, right? Mu Xingqian glanced at her and was momentarily speechless. Miss Sikong, you really know how to joke. Hearing that, Sikong Fuling silently glanced at Mu Xingqian and coughed awkwardly. That was true. She had indeed never heard of a holy beast being half-starved to death. This should be their misconception. Hungry, so hungry, master, hungry. Arbor abruptly sat up and his movements were so large that he almost flipped off the bed. A pair of large hazy eyes met with Emolienne, who was sitting at the table and looking at him. For a moment he was at a loss and didn't know where he was. Emolienne couldn't help but want to laugh. She quickly walked forward, lifted her clothes and sat down by the bed. He raised his hand to hold her small hand. How is it? Who's calling me? Arbor looked sternly at the crown prince and extended a finger to point in the direction of the door. Outside the door. Emolienne secretly ground her teeth, but still got up as instructed. She walked to the door and raised her hand to push it open. Sure enough, a slender little thing slithered in and rushed toward its master's bed with teary eyes. Arbor sat up cross-legged and sized up the little fellow that was climbing up. This slender little thing had vertical blood patterns carved on its back and a pair of small horns on its head. Arbor seemed to see 3 little dragons above the sparkling lake, churning and spitting fire as they spun up and down. Each of the 3 little dragons had a pair of dragon horns on their foreheads, and their blood-red bodies meandered upward. The flames they spat out were also blood-red. When the flames touched the lake, a sizzling sound was heard, and a small part of the lake water completely evaporated. Come back, how dare you make such a fuss? So disobedient. Watch as this little ancestor draws the Fushi sword and beheads you. Arbor's gaze was distant as he looked at the thing that crawled along the bed and finally reached her knees with great difficulty. She couldn't help but let out a faint chuckle as she gently stroked the little dragon's head. It turned out that this troublesome blood-marked demonic dragon had been sealed in her inner world all this time. The snake sculpture in her inner world was not a snake sculpture. It was a blood-patterned demonic dragon. She had hatched the 3 blood-patterned demonic dragons with great difficulty. Even now he could still remember the scene where the scarlet blood flame touched the lake water and turned it into steam. This little bit of fire could burn down mountains, rivers, sun and moon. It was quite fierce. The little stoic's eyes rippled with gentleness, and her small hand stroked Xiaolong's head, but her thoughts drifted off somewhere. Xiaobao, no matter where you go, Master will definitely look after you. Time and space are not a problem. As long as you miss me, just call me. I will definitely hear you. Xiao Mu blinked lightly before looking up at Emolian, who had stopped in his tracks and was gazing at her. She smiled brightly, her eyes crinkling. I'm hungry. Emolian quickly stepped forward and gently pulled her into his arms. He lowered his head and kissed her forehead. What do you want to eat? I want to eat something sweet. Bean paste cake, pineapple jelly, coconut cup, hibiscus crisp. Anything is fine. Emolian reached out to support her shoulders and looked down at the blood-patterned demonic dragon circling around the little girl's legs. I didn't expect this to be a dragon that likes to eat sweet things. Little Red can't fly when it's hungry. Arbor stroked Xiaolong's head, her voice rueful. Emolian raised her brows. Little Red? Chapter 44:12. Arbor nodded. Speaking of which, it actually has 2 younger brothers. It's called Little Red, second brother is called Little Red, and third brother is Little Red. Prince Mo's expression was a bit indescribable. The Crown Prince glanced at Little Red sympathetically and coughed lightly. But isn't it a black dragon? Even Little Black sounded better than Little Red. She was so feminine, just like a brothel worker who did odd jobs, but it has scarlet blood tattoos all over its body. The little girl argued with reason and glanced at the Crown Prince. Do you think this name isn't good? I've been calling it this since a very, very long time ago. The Crown Prince immediately shook his head without any integrity. No, Jojo's name is really good. This lousy dragon didn't express any objections. It wasn't like he had nothing better to do than argue with his wife over a trivial matter. This name is naturally good. Arbor nodded. Just like me and my younger sister and brother. Arbor, Qiaolin, Qiaosin, you can tell they're blood-related siblings from the sound of it. Blood-related and inseparable. Just from the name you can tell they're family. Yes. Prince Emo nodded helplessly. He went up to hug his wife and kissed her hard. Wife, do you still want to drink sweet soup? Date and longan soup. The little girl's eyes brightened. The smile on Prince Mo's lips widened wantonly. When he looked down, he saw that lousy dragon's round eyes also brightening. This little expression was exactly the same as its master's. Songzhou's Liu Pass ever since His Majesty personally arrived 3 days ago and took down the bandit leader with a single arrow, the morale of the Middle Army had been greatly boosted. After many days of extermination and encirclement, the bandit groups were forced to flee into the depths of the mountains and forests. Duan Yu ordered to surround the mountains and kill them one by one. Who are you? You've been sneakily spying on us. A young man in black riding beside Duan Yu turned his head to take a look. He saw 2 soldiers pushing and shoving a person whose face could not be seen clearly. That person cried out, "Hey, let go, quickly let go, my shoulder is about to be broken by you." When Duan Yu heard the familiar voice, he glanced to the side and raised his hand slightly. The black-clothed youth said, "Release him." The two soldiers loosened their grip and pushed the man in front of them. With a thud, Wu Ruomei's knee hit the ground heavily, causing her to grimace in pain. "We send her back." Duan Yu swept her a glance before turning to leave. Wu Ruomei hurriedly shouted, "Hey, wait. Your Majesty, I came here this time to report an official matter. I'm not fooling around." The black-clothed youth had already dismounted and walked to young Miss Wu's side. Just as he was about to take this troublesome young Miss Wu away, he heard her repeatedly shout, "Big matter, big matter. I have the letter can prove it." Duan Yu waved his hand and had someone present the letter in her hand. After skimming through it, his gaze landed on her deeply. "Does your father know about this matter?" Wu Ruomei scratched her head with a mischievous grin. "My father, he probably doesn't know." Duan Yu expressionlessly glanced at her. "If you don't use a messenger talisman, you'll have to run back and forth for several days and nights. By the time you tell him about this matter, it's already out of control." "Ah." Wu Ruomei looked at him in bewilderment and cautiously asked, "Your Majesty already knew?" She thought she had gathered a big piece of news from the streets. Chapter 44:13. Duan Yu ignored her and turned his horse to leave. He said, "Send her back to the Prime Minister's estate." "Then why hasn't His Majesty returned to the capital after such a major incident?" Wu Ruomei was a bit perplexed and hastily asked. Wu Yi gruffly pulled her up. All right, you don't need to meddle in His Majesty's affairs. Why should a woman like you meddle in so many men's affairs?" Wu Ruomei pushed Wu Yi back. "So what if I'm a woman?" Wu Yi couldn't help but be amused. "Nothing if I'm a woman, it's just that you..." Wu Ruomei suddenly summoned her long sword from her conscience. "Unsheath your sword. I want you to pay the price for this." The surrounding onlookers. Wu Yi twitched his mouth and rolled his eyes while crossing his arms. "I never raise a hand against women. Are you looking down on us women? Let me tell you, someone like you won't last more than 100 moves in the hands of Commandery Princess Wushuang." He didn't expect this eldest miss of the Prime Minister's estate to hold Commandery Princess Wushuang in such high esteem. This degree of blind adoration could rival that of a moron. "Alright, stop making a fuss. His Majesty is busy with proper business." "How am I making a fuss?" Wu Ruomei retorted angrily. "I came to help him suppress the bandits and deliver important news to him while I'm at it." "Huh. By the time your news arrives, the incident will have already happened." Wu Yi couldn't help but laugh. He grabbed Wu Ruomei and walked towards the carriage parked at the side. He directly threw Wu Ruomei into the carriage and instructed the coachman, "Bring some people and safely escort Miss Wu back to the estate." "Yes." Wu Ruomei was flustered and exasperated as she clung to the carriage frame and pounded on the wooden planks. "Hey, punk, you still haven't told me. Did His Majesty already know about the second prince's ulterior motives?" Wu Yi didn't answer her and only threw her a look that said, "Figure it out yourself. Giddy up." The coachman swung his whip and jolted Wu Ruomei back into the carriage. She cursed the entire way back. "I'll still be back. Don't think of stopping my ambition to be a female general." Wu Yi couldn't help but facepalm. It was no wonder that the Prime Minister always had an indescribable look on his daughter's face when he saw her. Any father who met her would feel stifled. That night, Duan Yu led his troops to a nearby barren mountain and captured all the remaining bandits in one fell swoop. At dawn, Ying silently appeared beside him, bowed and said, "The second prince's people have started to move." Duan Yu glanced back. Amidst the warm mist, rows of green-clothed puppets with cold and sharp expressions stood before him. These people were the assassins that the second prince and the third prince had hired from Jiwei City. At that time, after being captured by his people one by one, they were all turned into puppets. Now they could be put to good use. That third royal brother of Jin's really didn't make a move? Duan Yu's eyes flickered. He seemed to have thought of something and his expression appeared somewhat regretful. These useless brothers of his only knew how to eat, drink and play all day long. They were all useless and raising them was really a waste of money. He really wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to get rid of his second and third brothers in one fell swoop. Unfortunately, his third brother usually appeared to be a rash and impetuous person, but this time he had some brains and didn't participate in this from beginning to end. He really couldn't find a good reason to capture him for any random reason. Duan Yu couldn't help but sigh. Chapter 44:14. If he didn't leave the city, how would second royal brother dare to make a move? After dilly-dallying at Luyu Pass for several days, it was time to set off for the capital. He really wanted to see what this second brother of his could do under his nose. Your Majesty, 8th young Master Qi is here. Duan Yu raised his brows and looked back. He saw an elegant and handsome man in white walking over like a gust of wind between two rows of soldiers. Following behind him was a slender woman with a white veil covering her face, revealing only a pair of beautiful eyes. Duan Yu's gaze only landed on that 8th young Master Qi and didn't notice that woman. Her pair of beautiful eyes only stared deeply at him. Greetings, Your Majesty. 8th young Master Qi Rui bowed in a very standard manner. The woman following behind him took 2 steps forward and bowed in greeting. This subject, Qi Liren, greets Your Majesty. A strategist beside Duan Yu leaned closer and whispered, "Third miss of the Qi family." Duan Yu swept that woman a non-committal glance and nodded. No need to be so courteous. Duan Yu got straight to the point and asked this 7th young Master Qi, "How is the matter we asked you to consider?" 8th young Master Qi quickly bowed again. "It is my Qi family's honor to be able to take responsibility for the country. 8th Qi is willing to follow Your Majesty and serve you faithfully." Duan Yu wasn't surprised by 8th young Master Qi's attitude at all and only nodded. "In that case you will follow us from now on." Duan Yu paused and turned to look at Qi Liren behind 8th young Master Qi. Her 8th young Master Qi looked a bit embarrassed. When his family heard that he was coming to have an audience with His Majesty today, they insisted on shoving third sister over and insisted that he bring her along. He had already said that His Majesty was not interested in this kind of thing, but that unreliable father of his still insisted that he bring third sister along. He couldn't find any other excuse at this time. "Third sister is the most talented person in our Qi family." 8th young Master Qi smiled awkwardly. "To outsiders, everyone only knows that my talisman skills are outstanding, but third sister is actually slightly better than me." At this point, even a fool would understand that the Qi family still wanted this third miss to stay by His Majesty's side. Duan Yu's expression was aloof as he shook his head. "Third Miss Qi has the heart to serve the country, which is commendable. There is a difference between men and women. I do not need a woman to follow me for the time being." Everyone looked at each other in dismay. Qi Liren was stunned, but she wasn't angry. She said slowly, "I heard that Your Majesty has a female physician with superb medical skills by your side. Her name is Tu Xiuxiu." 8th young Master Qi quickly turned his head and winked at the third Miss Qi Liren. Third elder sister's words were like a slap to His Majesty's face. His Majesty had just said that he would not have any female attendants by his side, and now he was slapped in the face by Qi Liren. Duan Yu glanced at 8th young Master Qi. Physician 2 is married. Everyone was speechless. What did that mean? Does His Majesty discriminate against unmarried women? However, Duan Yu recalled that day at the foot of Mount Daxing, when Physician 2 knelt in front of him and said, "Tu Xiuxiu only wishes to have the opportunity to come into contact with people from the military and investigate her husband who disappeared from the military 6 years ago. Whether he lived or died, Tu Xiuxiu only wanted to know the final result so that she could be at ease. Could Tu Xiuxiu be the same as other women? Of course she was different." Duan Yu didn't say anything else and turned to order, "Return to the capital." Qi Liren took 2 steps forward and shouted at his departing figure, "I will make you see me in a different light." Chapter 44:15. The boat docked on the shore and everyone followed closely, stepping onto the beach covered in a thick layer of snow. Arbor casually put away scarlet firmament waves and looked around. It was a vast and empty island. At a glance, it was completely barren. It felt as if one could see the end of it with a single glance. This area of barren islands was connected to the sacred land of the snowy mountains, and they all had the same landscape. Due to the low temperature, the island was practically barren, and it was a vast expanse of whiteness everywhere. The snow creaked when they stepped on it. The closer they got to the center of the island, the heavier the snow became. Everyone followed the little girl closely and gradually discovered that the little stoic was forcefully leaving 2 rows of small footprints, as if she was walking very happily. This was truly too obvious. Everyone's cultivation was able to walk on snow without leaving a trace. Yet this fellow purposely left a small hole with each step, trying to pull her calf out of the snow pit, sinking it again, pulling it out again. Young Sir Ding couldn't resist chuckling. Could it be that you didn't play with snowmen when you were young? The little stoic ignored him and continued walking on her own path, one step at a time. Her small hand lifted her skirt several inches, leaving a small footprint with each step, and she continued walking forward. When she was young, her sect was covered in snow all year round. Murong Sun held her hand as they walked on the snowy mountains, leaving behind 2 rows of footprints. The little stoic chased after her footprints and forcefully stepped on them. When everyone saw that she was having so much fun by herself, their childlike instincts involuntarily arose, and they followed the little stoic's footsteps everywhere. Before long, they trampled the pure white snow into a mess, leaving behind footprints everywhere. The little stoic suddenly stopped and turned around to ask, "Why isn't there a trace of human habitation when 20,000 people are gathered here?" 20,000 people wasn't a small number. Even if they were all experts with cultivations above the 12th level of the spiritual realm, it would be fine if they walked on the snow without leaving a trace, but it was impossible for 20,000 people to walk without leaving a trace, right? Young Sir Ding smiled and slowly walked forward while stepping on the snow. "Follow me." The little stoic raised her foot and hesitated for less than a second before following closely. She glanced at young Sir Ding. "You really lived here when you were young? I've never lied to you." Ding Yun turned his head and gazed deeply at her. Arbor snorted and jumped forward. "You were so small back then. How could you survive on a deserted island like this? Have you eaten sea fish before?" Young Master Ding turned his head and asked. "It's fishy, bland, tasteless. I ate it for 3 years. Xiao Mu abruptly looked at him and her heart shuddered. This Ding Xian was truly a lunatic. It was one thing for her to suffer, but why did she have to drag her own son into it? This woman really didn't know how to dote on her son. "I was 4 years old then. It tastes terrible." Ding Yun turned to look at her again and smiled devilishly. "Sai, it wasn't until I was 7 that I realized that in this world, there are so many things that are more delicious than sea fish." The little stoic halted her steps. "I live on this island." "Something like that." Ding Yun shrugged. "I don't remember clearly. The deserted islands here were all the same. There's snow everywhere, weeds and withered vines everywhere. You." The little stoic looked like she wanted to say something, but in the end she glanced at him and didn't speak again. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal and Prince Emo walked side by side and followed behind them from a distance. Everyone was a cultivation expert, so even though they were separated by a certain distance, they could hear everything very clearly. "Do you want to ask me if I hate Long Chuyu?" Chapter 44:16. Arbor stole a glance at him with a serious expression on his little face. He did not reveal his gossip-loving Joe character at all. His little face was serious, indicating that it was up to him to say it or not. Young Master Ding walked forward slowly, a smile on his lips. "It would be a lie if I said I didn't hate him. It's just that I thought I hated him very much." Who would have thought that when I saw him again, he shrugged helplessly. "It seems like that's all there is to it." "You're right. I feel nothing. That's how I feel when I see Long Chuyu. Not feeling anything is the greatest feeling." Arbor glanced sideways at young Master Ding, wanting to say something but hesitating. "What? Are you trying to comfort me?" Arbor rolled his eyes coldly at him. "You're thinking too much." He took a step forward and stomped his foot down, creating a small hole in the ground. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal waved his little golden fan and smiled faintly. "Everyone has their own story. Jojo loves to listen to stories. It's really not a good habit. With her curious nature, she would be abducted by someone sooner or later." Emolien glanced sideways at him. "What are you trying to say?" The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal gestured with his chin at her and glanced at young Master Ding in front. "Jojo wants to talk to him. Then let's talk." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal snorted. "You're really generous. She knows what she's doing." The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not help but roll his eyes. He continued to slander her. "Unfortunately, we don't know if others know what they're doing." Emolien glanced sideways at him. A ruthless little Emolien jumped out of her heart. She used the hammer in her hand as if she was playing whack-a-mole. Thump, 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 thump. She hammered 18 times in a row. She hammered eldest Qin, Omega Kotoku, Ding Yun, Ming Yasi, Yuan Shurchen, Feng Chongqing, and a bunch of other people who kept popping out of the pit. Especially the Feng clansmen who had been indoctrinated by Feng Hepping into the concept of boy toys. Emolian held a small hammer and hammered Feng Chongqing and Feng Chongfei's 2 big heads. Who asked you to marry Jojo? I'll beat you to death, beat you to death. When the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal saw that he did not speak, he could not help but cast a sideways glance at him, only to see him staring at him with a strange expression. What's with that look? Emolian turned her head without a word and walked away. After taking a few steps, she couldn't help but cover her face with her hand. How could he have such a strange and childish idea? Wait, why did it feel like something was missing from the gopher hole? Husband. Peach Blossom. Arbor suddenly turned around and waved at them. There seems to be a boundary here. We can't pass through it. Be careful. There's something strange about the space on this island. Emolian and Heechin floated in her direction one after the other. Suddenly, they saw the layer of snow under the little stoic's feet abruptly collapse, and she instantly plummeted downwards. Young Master Ding, who was standing closest to her, subconsciously reached out to grab her wrist, trying to pull her up. However, Jojo's speed of descent was too fast, so he grabbed empty air. Anxious, he jumped down without thinking. Jojo. Emolian and Heechin were both alarmed. Oh no, there seems to be a spatial formation here. Feng Chongqing cried out in alarm. Everyone be careful. Just as he finished speaking, a few people suddenly fell into the snow hole on the ground. Miss Sikong. Mu Xingchen turned around and saw that Sikong Fulling's feet had loosened. Just as she was about to rise into the air, everyone saw a withered vine shoot out from the ground and coil around her feet. Mu Xingchen reached out to grab her arm. Abruptly, he felt an irresistible force and he also plummeted downwards with Sikong Fulling. Chapter 44:17. Xiao Mu knew that things were bad, but before she could break free and fly up, she felt an extremely majestic force dragging her small body down the entire way. As soon as she fell, she knew that there was indeed something wrong with this space. In reality, she didn't fall into any snow pit. She was probably pulled in by the mutated space here. The deserted island near the Snow Ridge Holy Land should be filled with natural space barriers and traps, as Ding Yun said. Qiu, what will happen if I hide in the star domain now? Master Silver, why don't you hide in here and eat something before continuing to fall? Arbor chuckled with a fake smile. Was Qiu not joking? But it was true. There was no use hiding in there now. She would still appear where she went in. If she wanted to fall, she had to continue falling. Therefore, there were many things that were useless to hide. She still had to face what she had to face. Based on your guess, how long more will I fall? I don't know, Master. The tree man who was watching the show had a large basin of pills in front of him and was throwing them into his mouth. To be honest, the little tree man didn't feel anxious at all. After all, she was his master. She was already a peak level 5 God Realm cultivator. How could she be troubled by such a small matter? While munching, Qiu said, Master, don't worry. You'll fall to your destination eventually. Pay attention to your defense. Open your defensive barrier. If it doesn't work, I'll set up a wood spiritual barrier for you. Master and Silver will protect you. Go, Master, go. Arbor. She really didn't want to talk to it right now. Arbor waved her finger. Several defensive talismans floated around her and instantly formed a small defensive talisman formation around her. She continued to fall, but she could feel that the speed of her fall seemed to have weakened a lot. Young Master Ding also jumped down with you just now. Qiu didn't mind watching the show and gloated. It's a pity that this space is very strange. As soon as he jumped down, he seemed to have been led astray into another passage. Arbor ignored it. She felt that she had fallen for a quarter of an hour before she saw a ray of light below. She took out a gravity talisman and slapped it on herself. Xiao Mu's body sank in midair, and when she looked down, she saw a stretch of jade-colored grass below her. The wind blew the grass and leaves and everything was green. Stepping on the soft grass, Arbor pursed his lips and remained silent for a while. Then he stretched out his fingers again and stuck a few defensive talismans on himself. Master Silver, do you feel unwell? Arbor raised his hand and summoned an ordinary spiritual sword from his inner world. He gently stirred the grass in front of him and walked forward expressionlessly. He didn't feel any discomfort, but he felt discomfort everywhere. It was very likely that the scene of green grass in front of him was just an illusion. Perhaps, wherever she walked, there would be mountains of corpses and seas of blood. Out of caution, the little stoic was willing to wrap herself in several layers of defensive barriers. She didn't want her skin to come into contact with anything around her. Master, do you want Chiu-Chiu to come out and accompany you? Arbor was silent for a while before he said, no need. All right, then Chiu-Chiu will cook noodles for Master. If Master is hungry later, you can come in and eat. Arbor thought about it and nodded. She knew that Master would definitely pay attention to her when it came to food. Chapter 44:18. Chiu-Chiu jumped down happily, then turned around and went to work. Xiao Mu walked for about half an hour in this expanse of lush green grass before finally stopping. Looking back, everything was still filled with an emerald color. Turning around and looking forward, the fragrant grass stretched to the heavens and the earth, as if there was no end in sight. Arbor leaped into the air and looked into the distance, but there was nothing out of the ordinary. As far as her eyes could see, there was still green grass. There seemed to be nothing out of the ordinary. She landed on the ground and sat cross-legged, her beautiful brows furrowed slightly. Right now the situation was like a turtle trapped in a jar. It was as if it was completely trapped within the spatial barrier. However, she did not know where this domain was, and for the time being she could not find a way to break this barrier. Arbor looked up at the sky. There were no clouds in the sky, and it was a clear blue. Who would have thought that they would be able to see such pure blue light in a domain like this? Since she was already here, Arbor was not in a hurry. She waved her hand and brought out the bowl of vegetables and meat noodles that Chiu-Chiu had cooked. Master, do you have any plans after finishing this bowl of noodles? Why don't you let Chiu-Chiu try and see if it can break this barrier? Arbor slowly picked up her chopsticks and put it into her mouth expressionlessly. She did not say anything. Chiu-Chiu was familiar with her personality. When she was thinking, she did not like to respond to anyone. Thus she said to herself, just now the great crown prince and his excellency He-Chin contacted me, but I could not drag them in directly. This shows that the surrounding space is very strange. The people who seem to be around us may be separated by thousands of mountains and oceans. Xiao Mu was sitting on a small, sparkling golden stool. She held her bowl of noodles in her hands and ate mouthful by mouthful. Master? Arbor raised her head slightly, only to see the scenery in front of her wavering slightly. Two tall and straight figures appeared in the air in front of her. Looking at the situation, the two of them were walking in a cave. On the stone wall, there were a few twisting black snakes with scarlet eyes that slowly slithered down the wall. Suddenly one of the snakes shot out. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal glanced at it from the corner of his eyes. With a flick of his finger, a stream of energy pierced through the snake's head and split it into two. Soon after, the shadow faded away. Like water ripples, it slowly rippled. Arbor's chopsticks paused for a moment before she continued eating her noodles. After finishing the broth, she tossed the empty bowl to Chiu-Chiu. Master, the crown prince is with the Peach Blossom Immortal Venerable. You don't have to worry. Arbor said expressionlessly, when have I ever worried about them? Then why didn't you say anything earlier? Chiu-Chiu said, feeling wronged. She thought that her master was in a bad mood because she was separated from the crown prince and was worried about her husband. That's because you are too noisy. I don't want to talk to you, Arbor said bluntly. Chiu-Chiu was immediately speechless. Could it be? Was it being despised by its little master? Arbor put away the small golden stool she had prepared and stood up. She patted the non-existent dust off her clothes. The defense talisman array covering her body was faintly discernible, its talisman power seemingly about to dissipate. Arbor did not hesitate to slap a few more defense talismans on herself and walked forward. I don't know when this will end, Chiu-Chiu said softly. Chiu-Chiu said in a small voice, Master, why don't we burn all the grass here and see? Can you burn this area? Arbor said indifferently. We don't even know how big this place is. Chapter 44:19. What should I do if my power runs out after burning halfway? Feeling stifled, Chiu-Chiu shut its mouth. A moment later it said, Then what should we do, Master? We'll take it one step at a time. Xiao Mu indifferently looked ahead. With a flick of her sleeve, A large swarm of poison-tailed butterflies flowed out from between her fingers and scattered in all directions. At the same time, Emolian and Yuan Shurchen were also standing in the cave, gazing with deep eyes at the phantom that appeared in midair for an instant and then disappeared immediately. They watched as Arbor released a swarm of poison-tailed butterflies to search for the barrier. The two of them exchanged a look. What do you think is strange about this space? Everything is strange. Yuan Shurchen put away his little golden fan and turned to wink at Emolian. But the way Jojo expressionlessly ate noodles just now was so interesting. Emolian stepped forward without another word, not even bothering to roll her eyes at him. Your sister is really a weirdo. Sikong Fuling held a meat bun in one hand and fiercely tore into it. She often carries hot soup and hot noodles in her personal inner world. She doesn't forget to bring enough food when she comes out for training. Sikong Fuling was currently sitting cross-legged on a round log and chewing hard on the meat bun in her mouth. Compared to my sister, I think you're also quite a weirdo. Mu Xingchen stood on the other end of the log and gazed at the bubbling blood pool around them. You can actually eat a meat bun in this kind of blood pool and sea of corpses? If you're not a weirdo, then what are you? Heh. Sikong Fuling directly swept away a withered white claw that was clinging to the log with the hilt of her sword. How am I a weirdo? She looked down at the bun in her hand. What do you think these surroundings are? I'm telling you, they're all illusions. The smell of rotting corpses you smell and the blood pool and sea of corpses you see before you actually don't exist. To put it bluntly, this space is just for us to imagine for ourselves. Whatever you imagine will appear around you. In addition, you saw that expressionless face just now because you were thinking about her. That's why she appeared in front of us. In fact, she is isolated in another sealed space which may be thousands of miles away from here. As he spoke, bubbles suddenly appeared in the blood pool. Suddenly, a few blood crocodiles with their mouths wide open jumped out and bit at the logs under their feet. Mu Xingchen was startled. His long sword flew out from his conscious with a whoosh and immediately chopped off the head of a blood crocodile. Sikong Fuling's attack was not weak either. In a flash, she stabbed the other blood crocodile back into the pool of blood that was seething with flowers of blood. My mother. Sikong Fuling wailed. Mu Xingchen couldn't help but roll his eyes. So may I ask, Miss Sikong, what exactly were you thinking when you came in here? He had already said that the surrounding environment was an illusion created by his imagination. Why couldn't he control his unrestrained thoughts? My heavens, Sikong Fuling exclaimed. In all honesty, I didn't think of anything at all. I really wasn't thinking of anything just now. Sikong Fuling suddenly felt her hair stand on end. She turned her head in unison with Mu Xingchen and saw a sinister dragon head emerge from the rippling pool of blood. Mu Xingchen exclaimed in shock. You? Why are you thinking of that black dragon again? Chapter 44:20. I wasn't thinking about that black dragon. Sikong Fuling complained incessantly, her face already scrunched up into a ball. She fiercely slapped the back of her head, wishing for nothing more than to slap herself. Who told you to run your mouth off and let your thoughts run wild and wanton? Why did you think of that dragon in that damn stoic face's dream? This fellow recalled in horror that she indeed rejoiced for a split second in her heart just now. Thank goodness, it was only a few blood crocodiles that weren't too big or too small, and not that violent black dragon in the slender little stoic's dream. In the end, she seemed to have met a tragic end right away. Hurry and paddle, Mu Xingchen. Sikong Fuling couldn't care that much anymore and directly used her long sword as an oar to paddle the bloody water in the pool. However, the log seemed to have suddenly lost control and kept spinning back and forth in the center of the bloody water. Mu Xingchen lifted her up, kicked the log aside and fled in the air. Hurry and recall that black dragon in your head. Are you stupid, Mu Xingchen? Sikong Fuling was so angry that she repeatedly kicked her legs while being carried in his hand. She shouted angrily, "Don't tell me you don't know? Summoned things can't disappear unless it's destroyed." Roar. That pitch-black and extremely malevolent black dragon finally burrowed out of the bloody pool. It leaped into the air and chased after the two of them. Think of something good. Mu Xingchen couldn't resist roaring. Defend, defensive shield. Sikong Fuling's mind was a mess when she saw that black dragon snaking its way up and chasing after them, and she suddenly shouted. The black dragon bit down on the defensive wall in front of the two of them, immediately crushing it into powder. Why is this defensive shield so unreliable? Sikong Fuling hugged Mu Xingchen's arm and exclaimed in astonishment. Because this isn't a defensive shield you summoned at all, Mu Xingchen said helplessly. This was merely a defensive boundary he set up, so it naturally couldn't withstand a single blow from a holy beast. I understand. Mu Xingchen pulled her up and shouted, hurry and run. Apart from summoning things that harm others and themselves, this godforsaken place seemed to be unable to summon anything good. Even if you want to think positively now, there's no way to realize it. On the contrary, Mu Xingchen hurriedly stopped his surging thoughts and shuddered violently. He almost blurted out something again. Mu Xingchen. Sikong Fuling staggered in midair and nearly fell into the blood-colored pool. Mu Xingchen hurriedly reached out to grab her. When he looked back, he saw Black Dragon chasing after them with a roar. Let's go. Xiao Mu paused in her steps and suddenly looked back. There was a patch of fragrant grass, and it was as if nothing had appeared. She turned around and took 2 more steps. Suddenly, the sound of a spirit sword leaving its scabbard rang out. The spirit sword in his hand stabbed backwards at an extremely fast speed, bringing out a figure that fell to the ground with a plop. The little stoic expressionlessly turned around to look. That thing slowly arched up and the bones all over its body creaked. His head slowly rotated in a 360-degree circle before facing Xiao Mu head-on, and his pair of dead fish eyes rolled upward. Gah! That thing suddenly let out an ear-piercing shriek and shot toward Arbor with abnormally swift and violent movements. At the same time, the surrounding grass rustled as if countless zombies were crawling out and gathering. Chapter 44-21. In the blink of an eye, Arbor's hand shook, and a thin piece of paper flew out from her conscious. It slowly unfolded like a painting scroll slowly opening up. Light flowed out, and the painting displayed the mountains, rivers, sun, and moon with her current cultivation. The Tianji treasure blueprint could already open up the 10th layer of the attack. Thousands of streams of light flowed out of this tiny blueprint, turning into specks of gravel that emitted a lustrous white light. They shot out in all directions. A moment later, Arbor looked at the already quiet air around her and silently put the Tianji treasure blueprint back into her conscious. Qiu, I was just wondering if there would be corpse puppets here. In the end, Master Silver, this place can't be the legendary Realm of Misfortune, right? Realm of Misfortune? Qiu simply flew out of the star domain and climbed onto Arbor's shoulder, dancing with joy as it said, Legend has it that in the Realm of Misfortune, all fantasies will come true. The little tray ant climbed onto her shoulder and looked around. But generally speaking, after entering the Realm of Misfortune, everything you see before you is an extremely terrifying place. Master was indeed quite a weirdo. From the moment she entered until now, apart from the batch of corpse puppets she had imagined, which the Tianji treasure blueprint took care of in a matter of minutes, she really did not encounter any other dangers. Moreover, in front of her the sky was clear and green. No wonder it did not associate this place with the Realm of Misfortune at first. How can we leave this Realm of Misfortune? Arbor asked straightforwardly. Since the little tray ant knew what the hell this place was, it should have a way to deal with it. Qiu scratched its head and giggled. It's extremely difficult for others to get out. But if Master wants to get out, it's really too easy. Speak. Master, you can refine this Realm of Misfortune. Arbor's eyes flickered. Is that really possible? Yes, of course it's possible. Qiu nodded with a grin. Once Master refines it, the space barrier here will immediately be broken. At that time, everyone will fall out of the Realm of Misfortune. Arbor nodded, not fully understanding. Judging from Qiu's words, Jojo's Lotus, Yu Jiechen, and the others should have also entered the Realm of Misfortune, but they were separated by this mystic realm? If the secret realm was refined, they would naturally be released. Without saying a word, Arbor waved his hand and laid out a blanket. He sat down cross-legged and slowly closed his eyes. Divine power from all directions gathered toward her and quickly enveloped her entire body. This wasn't Arbor's first time refining a mystic realm. This level of refining was already a walk in the park for her. As such, he quickly got into the zone right from the start. Even Qiu was a little taken aback. Master Silver was so formidable. Previously, when refining the mystic realm, there had been at least a period of preparation. But now he did not need to expend any effort at all and directly started. At this moment young Master Ding was standing on an abandoned hill with a frown, looking up at the mirage in the starry sky. He did not know what the little fellow was doing. A large wave of corpse puppets had been destroyed by the Tianji treasure blueprint just like that. Now she was sitting on the ground as if nothing had happened. Was it because she had overused the divine power she had injected into the Tianji treasure blueprint just now? Young Master Ding could not figure it out no matter how much he thought about it. He realized that the mirage in front of him was slowly disappearing. Chapter 44-22. What's Jojo doing? Yuan Shurchen pulled out his sword from the wall and turned to look at Mo Lian, who was studying the illusion carefully. This place was really strange. It did not allow them to meet Jojo, but it allowed them to see Jojo's movements from time to time. Made them itch and annoyed. Mo Lian was silent for a long time. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal walked over impatiently and pushed him. What's wrong? We'll probably meet Jojo soon. Oh. Yuan Shurchen's interest was immediately piqued. They had been walking back and forth in this dark and gloomy cave for a few hours. It was the same path, the same scenery. They had already killed 3 snake kings that were as thick as bulls, but they still could not find a way out. However, each snake king was stronger than the last. Can you stop letting your imagination run wild? Rein in your thoughts. Mo Lian looked at him helplessly. Why do you keep thinking about snakes and snake kings? Can't you think about scorpions and centipedes? As Mo Lian said this, he suddenly realized something. He slowly turned his head and met Rotten Peach Blossom's eyes. The two of them quickly turned their heads and saw a large number of centipedes and scorpions climbing down from the wall. Without another word, they broke into a run. Their slender figures flashed through the cave like lightning. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal could not help but curse. Mo Lian, are you a pig? You told me not to think nonsense. What are you thinking about? Can't you think about 17 or 18 Jojo? Jojo hugging a gold brick, Jojo hugging a jade pearl. Do you think it's a perfect picture? There's no use thinking about it. There's nothing beautiful in this place of misfortune. Would it conjure up 17 or 18 cute Jajas? Dream on. So why don't you think about centipedes and scorpions? Why don't you think about an 8-horned centipede king that broke out of the wall? Boom! The cave in front of them collapsed. The shadow of a black and white behemoth crawled out of the crack in the wall. Mo Lian felt her scalp go numb. She slapped the black line of fire away and scolded, "You're the pig." Ma Shurchen wished he could bite off his own tongue. Mu Xingchen, I'm telling you, block it. Block it. Sikong Fuling clutched her bloody arm and widened her eyes in horror as she stared at the big black dragon spewing lightning across from them. If you do that again, I'm telling you, I'm done for. It's over. If it were any other time, Sikong Fuling's rippling voice would certainly make people laugh. But now they really didn't have the energy to laugh, and the two simply couldn't cry. If I die, then so be it. Mu Xingchen closed his eyes and took out 17 to 18 divine power beads from his inner world. Wait. Could it drop? Will it affect us? What's going on, Mu Xingchen? Did you notice that the ground is shaking? No, that's not right. Seems like the entire space is shaking and shattering. Mu Xingchen grabbed Sikong Fuling and leaped backward. He was about to throw out the divine power beads in his hand when he saw the black dragon baring its fangs and brandishing its claws in midair. It seemed to be bound by something as it roared and rolled in the air. The dragon's entire body was tightly constricted in a whirlwind as though it was being sucked away by some demon-subduing spirit weapon. It turned into a cloud of dust and disappeared before their eyes. The sound of something shattering could be heard. The two of them looked at each other and screamed as their bodies fell down. Arbor caught a pitch-black round heart of misfortune when he heard a chuckle behind him. Jojo. Chapter 44-23. Arbor turned to look and could not help but frown. Why was it him? Young Master Ding was dressed in a light blue robe that was spotless. He looked rather elegant and at ease. It seemed that the realm of misfortune did not cause him any trouble. This guy did not look disheveled at all. What a coincidence, Jojo. Arbor did not say anything. She only glanced at him from the corner of her eyes, then looked around. At this time they were stepping on wet and gloomy water and the walls were damp rocks. This was an underground karst cave. A faint light shone from the end, looking purple and yellow. Ding Yun walked slowly to her side and said casually, Jojo, it seems that we have to walk inside to find out what happened. That realm of misfortune was so strange. It's not strange to say that it swallowed 20,000 people. Although Arbor did not say anything, she agreed with young Master Ding's view. Seeing that she did not speak, Ding Yun's expression was calm and he was not angry. He smiled and said, "This place is very narrow. We can see a thing or two at a glance. Why don't we walk forward together? Maybe there's a wider area and we can find traces of people. This underground cave is very big. Be careful." Qiao Mu reluctantly gave him an unsightly look before nodding. With 1 foot higher than the other, Qiao Mu felt uncomfortable everywhere as she treaded on the cold, damp water as she advanced. Fortunately, she had changed into a pair of thick boots before she left. Otherwise, her feet would be soaked and she would feel even more uncomfortable. The further they walked, the wider the area before them became. This karst cave looked very deep. There were stalactites of different shapes hanging from the ceiling. Some of them were especially sharp. When Ding Yun walked over, he almost accidentally tore his sleeve. In such a dark and damp place, Arbor had goosebumps all the way. She hated this kind of gloomy and cold environment the most. It made her have a trace of bad memories. The dungeon was just this dark and damp. There was also a lingering stench in the air. "Jojo, do you want to rest for a while?" Ding Yun stopped and turned back to look at her. The little girl seemed to hate this place. He could tell from her expression of disdain. Rest? It was wet everywhere. Who would want to rest in such a damned place? Arbor shook his head. "Go." Young Master Ding nodded and continued forward with her. After walking for a short distance, he saw a black shadow flashing at the end of the cave. Then it disappeared without a trace. Ding Yun stopped and turned to look at the expressionless Arbor. "There seems to be something." Jojo silently slapped a few more defensive talismans on her body and opened her eggshell defensive artifact. That's right, this eggshell-like spiritual weapon had been improved by Prince Emo not long ago. Now, not only was it more durable and sturdy, the amount of divine power needed to use this defensive divine weapon was also greatly reduced. Ding Yun turned back to look at her. He suppressed the smile that slipped to his lips and coughed lightly. "Don't worry. Someone is probably just pretending to be mysterious." Arbor gave him a, "I seem to be worried" look and silently clenched the spiritual sword in his hand. The two walked forward for less than a quarter of an hour. The sound of flowing water entered their ears. A black shadow suddenly slid down from the pitch-black stone wall and quickly pounced on the two of them. Ding Yun immediately stepped in front of Arbor and grabbed the other's shoulder with lightning speed. The moment he touched her, he felt a bone-chilling coldness freeze his fingers. Chapter 44-24. Immediately, he channeled a trace of Wood's spiritual energy and slapped the person's chest. With a crack sound, the thing's head seemed to droop as if it had been fractured. If it was an ordinary person, they would be finished immediately after being slapped by young Master Ding, and would not be able to do anything else. However, it was obvious that the thing in front of them was not an ordinary person. A series of bone-cracking sounds could be heard, and in the dark and silent cave, it was somewhat hair-raising. The black shadow with its drooping head slowly raised its head, and 2 clusters of green will-o'-the-wisps appeared in its eyes. When it shone in the dark cave, Arbor immediately averted her eyes in disgust. Suddenly, a hand reached for her shoulder and grabbed at her through the defensive barrier, but it was quickly rebounded by the defensive light. That person seemed to be in pain from the rebound and cursed out loud, "Stupid girl, look carefully before you hit me." Qiao Mu turned around for a glance, her brows knitting together. "Why is it you? Why can't it be me?" That person rolled his eyes at her in annoyance, then looked behind her and his expression changed. "Come with me quickly." He turned and rushed into the stone wall beside them, disappearing in an instant. Arbor was surprised. It seemed that there were stone walls all around them and they looked quite sturdy, but she did not expect that guy to pass through in an instant. "Dodo, let's go." Ding Yun called out to her. Arbor came back to her senses and the sound of wind brushed past her ears. She instantly looked up. She saw a dense mass of 30 to 40 ghostly things with flickering eyes on the stone wall, one after another. Some were hanging on the stalactites, while others were lying on the ceiling of the cave. Suddenly they let out strange howls, climbed down from above and pounced on them. The two of them made a prompt decision and threw themselves into the stone wall beside them, and passed through it in a flash. The scene in front of them stunned everyone. They saw tens of thousands of people sitting in a spacious place that looked like a drill ground. If it were not for the dark surroundings and the dripping of water from the stone walls, Arbor would have almost thought that they were in a martial arts drill ground. In front of them were rows upon rows of silent soldiers. All of a sudden, their eyes swept over the two of them. Arbor and Ding Yun both crashed into this large military field. Their very sudden appearance naturally attracted a lot of attention. Everyone was sizing them up, and they were naturally sizing them up as well. Arbor's heart skipped a beat. The soldiers sitting in a row had their hair tied into a braid. They wore black jackets and knee-length fur skirts. Their attire was so unique that it was naturally the special taste of the people of the underworld region. "Why are you here again?" Akir had just opened her mouth to retort when Yasi, who was standing beside her, swept a glance over her. "Shut up." Ollie rubbed his wrist that hurt from the defensive block and grumbled repeatedly, "Eldest brother, you don't know, but when I went out to bring them in just now, my hand was shaken by the little stoic's defensive light." "Why did you go and grab her for no reason?" Minya said indifferently. "You're asking for trouble." It wasn't his first time coming into contact with this stoic face. He should know what kind of person she was, right? She was a little hedgehog that pricked anyone who touched her. Ollie was indignant. He pursed his lips and snorted, grumbling, "Isn't it all to remind her?" Minya's face was stern as he strode to Arbor. "Long time no see." Chapter 44-25. Sir Jojo swept an expressionless glance over them. His pitch-black eyes looked around with a spirited expression. Many people were squeezed together. There were at least 10,000 people in the entire large field. "You guys." Ming Yasi followed her gaze and looked around. "We were originally planning to gather here and rest for a while before informing you. Indeed, this place wasn't far from the Lishan Island they'd originally booked. Most importantly, it was difficult to sail the ship due to the fierce winds and torrential rain that day." Ollie pursed his lips. "Big brother said that we should take shelter on the island." Ming Yasi nodded slightly in silence. Arbor was rather surprised. She'd received news that 20,000 people from the Divine Prefecture and Song Prefecture had arrived on the island. She hadn't expected that the Dark Prefecture army had already arrived. "How long ago?" "We've been trapped here for at least 5 days, Ming Yasi said with certainty. After they'd been trapped, he'd been instructing people to keep track of the time, so he was well aware of the passage of time. Xiao Mu creased her brows upon hearing this. This meant that Ming Yasi's group had arrived earlier than the elites from the Divine Prefecture and Song Prefecture. But didn't they find it strange? Arbor glanced over. "Why must we rest on this deserted island?" Ming Yasi's expression froze. He thought back to that day and said in a low voice, "That day the winds were fierce and torrential. A few ships just happened to run aground." When he said this, he also felt that this matter was rather coincidental. He was an intelligent person to begin with, so he immediately understood some things. "Jojo, you mean that someone deliberately set up a formation in the water to lure us onto the island?" Arbor nodded. Wasn't this already very obvious? When she'd come to the River of Forgetfulness with Longshi's group, they'd also passed through this waterway, but nothing had happened to them then. There's a natural realm of misfortune on this island. Have you encountered it before? Of course not. Otherwise, these people wouldn't still be in such a neat and tidy state. Although these soldiers were all experts above the 12th level of the spirit realm, most of them probably wouldn't be able to escape unscathed in the realm of misfortune. Arbor looked up at Ming Yasi when she thought of this. As expected, Ming Yasi looked at her and shook his head. "Realm of misfortune? Never." "Oh." The little stoic replied faintly. Everyone's gazes simultaneously looked towards the little stoic's expressionless face. Why did he suddenly feel that the air was a little quieter, as if there was nothing to say? Could it be an illusion? The soldiers looked at each other, then silently shifted their gazes to His Highness Maya's. Ollie couldn't help but chuckle. "What realm of misfortune? You make it sound so mysterious. In any case, we've never met them." "What's wrong? Did you fall into the secret realm?" Young Master Ding smiled and nodded elegantly. "We did fall in, but Jojo quickly fished us out." Ming Yasi creased his brows and approached the little stoic. "Come here." Xiao Mu straightforwardly took a step back. Everyone's gazes instantly landed on her. There were very few women who dared to be so impudent in front of His Highness. Young Master Ding also stepped forward to block her and said with a smile, Ming Province's crown prince, the most important thing we should do right now is to immediately discuss a strategy to leave this place. Ming Yassi's cold gaze swept over young Master Ding. Move aside. Chapter 44-26. I don't need you to remind me. This highness naturally knows what's most important. Ming Yassi glanced coldly at Ding Yun. Just as he was about to speak, he heard Akir's cry of alarm from the other end. Brother! She staggered over as if possessed by a sickly beauty. She clutched her chest with one hand and fell towards Ming Yassi in a panic. Ming Yassi's body movements were honest, and he very swiftly shifted his position to the side to avoid her fall. Seeing Akir fall head first onto the ground with a cry, Ollie hastily reached out to support her. He then called out, Akir, what's wrong with you? Young Master Ding turned to look and just happened to see the little stoic's taut face. She rolled her pitch-black eyes, a faint disdain showing on her face. This little expression was truly so vivid that it made people feel that this stoic face suddenly radiated with a bit of brilliance. Poison, poison, Akir's face flushed red, and she cast a sidelong glance in Arbor's direction. As a result, the surrounding soldiers as well as young Master Ding and Ming Yassi naturally focused their gazes on the little stoic again. Everyone knew that this stoic face was an extremely outstanding pill talisman master. Miss Akir's pained expression couldn't have been that this stoic face had secretly attacked her as soon as she came in, right? Who knew that the little stoic would expressionlessly glance at Akir? Don't you know how to act too much? Ming Yassi also reprimanded with a sullen face. Stop fooling around. Quickly stand up straight. Akir clutched her collar with one hand, crumpling it. She turned to Ming Yassi with a pained expression and asked, Brother, you believe outsiders and not me? Aiwa. As she spoke, Akir suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood and everyone's gazes instantly changed. Ollie grabbed Akir's arm especially agitatedly and glared at the little stoic. What's wrong with you? Are you looking for trouble as soon as you arrived? I specifically went out to lure you guys here to take refuge, but you avoided trouble? The little stoic was silent and didn't say anything. Akir whined and wept. On the other hand, Ming Yassi glared at his younger brother with extreme impatience. Can you grow a brain? Don't lose your wits just because a woman cries with a few words. How can I let you manage the Wu Zhong army in the future? Ollie was instantly rendered speechless by his brother's scolding. He could only stammer, but Akir, she looks very uncomfortable. The two of them were so far apart, how could she poison him? Do you think you can poison her alone when there are so many of us here? Ming Yas scolded in annoyance. Scram to the side. Ollie thought about it and agreed. His face alternated between green and white as he cast a sidelong glance at Arbor. He was about to help Akir to the side. Unexpectedly, Akir's body trembled violently as though all the hair on her body was about to fall off. She spat out another mouthful of blood. How could the surrounding soldiers still sit still? They all stood up and stared at Ding Yun and Arbor with vigilance. Young Master Ding grinned and reached out to block Jojo. His expression was calm as he cast a glance in Yassi's direction. Isn't it interesting? Ming Yassi's handsome face darkened as he stared coldly at the smiling man in front of him. You did it? Ding Yun tilted his head. Isn't it interesting to pretend to come true? You. Ollie pointed at Ding Yun. Hurry and treat Akir's poison. Young Master Ding shrugged. That will depend on her luck. Chapter 44-27. Ming Yassi's gaze changed and he looked at the person in front of him warily. Just now, most of his attention had been on this person. This person looked like an elegant and gentle gentleman, but he didn't expect him to be so ruthless. Other than Arbor, probably no one present knew when he attacked and how he poisoned her. As expected, young Master Ding's special ability was extremely interesting. Not only could he change his appearance at will, but he also fused the venom of the evil beast, Fire Qilin Fanged Snake, and turned it into his own ability to dissolve poison. This was a person who was born with poison. He didn't need to wave his hand at all. As long as he wanted to, he could release poison and kill people with just his breathing and speech. Akir, hurry up and get over here, Ming Yassi called coldly. Under his icy gaze, Ollie could only quickly retract his hand. Once he let go, Akir weakly fell to the ground with a plop, and her entire body lay on the ground powerlessly. Your clumsy act has already been exposed, Mingyasi said coldly. Hurry up and apologize. Don't you want your life anymore? Akir glared furiously at Arbor. This person was born to oppose her, right? Ever since she started fighting with this person, she had never gained any advantage over him. The most abominable thing was that this kind of woman actually had an ancient marriage contract with Big Brother Yasi. Truly infuriating. Truly infuriating. Her brother said she was acting, but she clearly hadn't even started her act when she was really fucking poisoned. Gazing at Arbor's infuriating, exquisite stoic face, Akir pursed her lips as if she found it difficult to speak, and a mosquito-like voice came from her throat. So sorry. A wave of fury assaulted Akir's heart. Why did she have to lie here and apologize in a battered and exhausted state while the other party looked down at her with an indifferent gaze from above? His gaze was as if he was looking at something filthy, and it made Akir's heart burn with rage. Her anger burned endlessly. Arbor walked out of the crowd. Ollie looked at her in bewilderment and shouted at her back, "Hey, what do you mean by this? Didn't you detoxify the poison in her body?" "I poisoned them?" The little stoic cast them a chilly glance. "But this?" Ollie looked at her and then turned to look at the innocent young master Ding. "If you open your mouth, this young master will detoxify Akir's poison." Arbor's cold eyes fell on Ollie's face. That cold gaze instantly made the young man tense up. He had an instinctive premonition and wanted to avoid it immediately. "You want to die?" Everyone stared at her in shock. Wasn't the little stoic a bit too arrogant? She and that young master were facing the entire underworld prefecture's army of 10,000 people. How could they say such harsh words to young Master Ollie? Whoever placed the poison should treat it. "You've asked the wrong person for help," the little stoic said coldly. He was so angry that he was trembling a bit. He pointed at the little stoic before looking up at his elder brother whose expression was still unsettled. You really can turn hostile and be heartless." No one present was a fool. Once they heard this, they knew that the little girl was evading the responsibility. It was only then that Akir panicked a bit. She looked pitifully at Mingyasi. "Brother Yasi." Mingyasi's patience with her had long run out. The more he looked at her, the more annoyed he felt. He had nowhere to vent his anger, so he turned to shout at Ollie, "I already said not to bring her here to stir up trouble. You brought this upon yourselves, deal with it yourselves." Chapter 44-28. Akir couldn't resist wailing, and she did her utmost to restrain her trembling emotions. Ollie couldn't bear it when he saw this. He walked up and whispered in front of Mingyasi, "Brother, you have to help Akir." Akir didn't do it on purpose. Young Sir Ding floated past them with a grin. Ollie immediately glared daggers at him. "You brat, stop right there. You're quite impressive. You dare to be so arrogant in the midst of an army of 10,000? Hurry and detoxify the poison in my sister's body." "Did you not understand Jojo's meaning?" Young Sir Ding turned around and winked at him. "Jojo said not to save her. Let her suffer." Ollie was so angry that his lungs were about to explode. When did the little stoic say this? Can't you tell? Jojo's every breath from head to toe and that icy expression on her face are all saying this. Young Sir Ding answered very naturally. Ollie turned to look at Mingyasi. He didn't say anything, but his gaze also seemed to reveal the same meaning. Only you guys can understand the little stoic's thoughts. He doesn't know anything, right? Ollie rolled his eyes and took a deep breath. Just as he was about to walk towards Arbor, he heard a loud rumble coming from the wall beside them. Some of the soldiers who were originally sitting on the ground hastily stood up. When they turned around to look, they saw a large hole in the wall. Everyone immediately drew their sabers and swords defensively. The atmosphere was so tense that it could erupt at any moment. Everyone was prepared to fight those monsters with green eyes outside. They saw a few soldiers in short armor jump out of the hole with two whooshing sounds. They looked at them with big eyes and hurriedly said, "Heir presumptive Crown Prince. There are Ming Province soldiers here." When the little stoic saw a person come out of the hole, her eyes clearly brightened. She skipped forward in high spirits and looked behind that person. His Majesty didn't come. Vassal Heir Roan glanced at her helplessly. For some reason he instantly understood what the little anticipation in her eyes meant. As expected, after his words stopped the little stoic's movements, This fellow immediately put on an icy expression and glanced at him. Crown Prince Rong was well aware of the young lady's tricks, so he quickly said, "His Majesty is not a liar. It's just that I've just ascended to the throne and there are many things to do, so I don't have the time." "His Majesty misses you very much." Crown Prince Rong coughed lightly and said, "He wanted me to tell you, Jojo, I've received your space ring. I can't repay you for your deep affection, so I can only repay you with my body in the future." Everyone's expressions changed. After this weird conversation, they already knew which weirdo was the one who said this. Mr. Jojo stared at Crown Prince Rong expressionlessly. "What happened to your hand?" "It's nothing. It's just that there was some friction when we were fighting the monsters outside," Crown Prince Rong said calmly. "Come here." Arbor roared at him. Everyone's expression changed again. The little Crown Princess' attitude towards the people of Tsangzhou was obviously different. "Did you run into Jojo's lotus and the others on your way here?" the little stoic asked as she applied medicine for Crown Prince Rong. Crown Prince Rong shook his head. "Prince Imo also came? Alright, why are you here?" "To find you, of course." Arbor glanced at him and turned on his mocking mode. 20,000 people, oh no, it should be 30,000 people now. They disappeared without a trace after landing on the island. Haha, a bunch of weaklings. Everyone heard a bit of disdain in his voice. Chapter 44-29. It wasn't difficult for Rong Qing to discern the slight disdain in the little stoic's tone. She glanced at her with a rather helpless gaze. "Actually, it really was just an accident. Our fleet encountered Commandery Princess Wushuang. Both sides were negotiating when suddenly, violent winds and torrential rain, lightning flashed and thunder rolled." "How do you know?" Rong looked at her curiously. Arbor glanced askance at Minyasi, who was quickly walking forward. He also encountered it. Rong wasn't stupid and immediately caught on. "We were tricked by a formation." "Who do you think tricked us?" "Zitianyun. Does he want to slaughter us all in one go?" Arbor turned to Rong Qing and the others with a stoic face. "Based on my intuition." Rong Qing nodded, looking like she was listening attentively. "It's probably because your large group was annoying, so someone purposely set up a formation to temporarily trap you on the island for several days. Once the time limit is up, you'll probably be able to leave." Everyone was stunned. Arbor glanced at them coldly. "The person who lured you onto the island definitely had no intention of harming you. Otherwise, they only needed to lure you into the realm of misfortune." Arbor swept a glance over them. "Just the nightmares alone are enough to scare you to death. The realm of misfortune was equivalent to a realm of certain death. How many people did they think would be able to escape unscathed after they entered? Then what about those green-eyed monsters on the island? Aren't those strange things created by Tianyun?" Someone immediately questioned. Arbor shook his head. "Those corpses can only climb and can't stand upright. Their eyes even emit green flames. They should be puppets controlled by a kind of ghost fire heart-devouring worm that likes to parasitize corpses." Ollie still wanted to speak, but Arbor continued indifferently. "Tianyun has already improved the corpse puppets to special class rank 2 and created a type of corpse puppet that can control zither sounds to kill humans. So how could this kind of thing possibly catch their eye? Tianyun already disdains playing with such low-class things. Now Tianyun is wantonly refining and improving the medicinal liquid to accelerate the crystallization in the corpse puppet's brain. In the future he may be able to create a perfect corpse puppet that is closer to a human. It may even be able to hide in the crowd and be unknown to others." Hearing this, Rong Qing, Minyasi and the others couldn't help but shudder. "Tianyun can actually develop the corpse puppet cause to such an extent?" Arbor nodded with an expressionless little stoic face. "It's up to you to believe it or not." "Of course I do." Crown Prince Rong immediately nodded his head, showing his unconditional support. "When His Majesty left, he instructed us to listen to your opinions. His Majesty praised you for your intelligence and wisdom, which is unique in the world. Your analysis is so orderly and logical. It must be correct." Everyone couldn't help but burst into laughter. This Prince Qing's heir looked like a talented, elegant and exceptionally fine young master, but she didn't expect that he actually had the habit of being a lackey. He didn't forget to seriously praise the little stoic every 3 sentences and conveniently mentioned that this was their monarch's intention. His heart was clear to all. The little stoic looked at him very expressionlessly. However, everyone inexplicably felt that the little girl seemed to be in a pretty good mood right now. Could it be that this fellow subconsciously liked to listen to other people's praises? But it made sense when they thought about it. This stoic face might normally be expressionless, but her mental activities were probably richer than anyone else's. Chapter 44:30. Probably the more arrogant and icy her face was, the more awkward and fiery her heart was. Everyone couldn't help but glance at the little stoic a few more times. Her expression was solemn as she asked without batting an eyelid, "You said Wushuang also came?" Rongqing nodded. A day ago she exchanged a few words with Commandery Princess Wushuang across the boat. At the time, third young Master Fu was also by her side. We're fine, so those two should also be fine. Rongqing merely thought she was worried about the safety of the Divine Prefecture army, so she comforted her. Arbor muttered to himself for a moment before nodding and saying, "That's probably the case." "May I ask who lives on this deserted island?" Rong asked in confusion. "What are your intentions for keeping us here for no reason?" Arbor appeared very calm. "Since we're here, let's just take things as they come." There was no use in being anxious. In any case, everyone had an inner world and had food and drinks. If worse came to worst, they could just cultivate here. "What do you mean, since we're here?" "Of course you can say that when you're not injured or in pain. If you're locked up on this deserted island for 3 to 5 years, let's see if you can still smile at that time." Ollie grabbed Akir, who was twisting her body with all her might. "Akir, don't," he wanted to persuade her to stop provoking this fiendish little stoic. In the end, he simply couldn't hold on to this jealous woman and flung her away. "Hand over the antidote." Arbor turned around and stared icily at the woman who stumbled over. Before she could even get close, Crown Prince Rong signaled with his eyes and the woman was stopped by 2 Zhangzhou guards. Akir struggled with all her might as her arms were grabbed. She shouted like a mad woman, "Woman, don't push your luck. Hurry and hand over the antidote." Arbor couldn't help but frown and turned to look at Ming Yasi. "I've always wanted to ask you a question." Ming Yasi's intuition told him that this guy wouldn't ask any good questions. His mouth silently twitched, but his expression was very calm. "Speak. Why do you always keep an idiot by your side to cause trouble? Doesn't this show off your intelligence?" Ali's eyes couldn't help but widen. How could he speak like this without giving Akir any face? Akir understood the meaning in her words. She bared her fangs and brandished her claws as she angrily said, "What did you say? You woman, how dare you?" Minius turned a deaf ear to Akir's shouts. He glanced at Arbor and said seriously, "Would you abandon your younger siblings if they were stupid?" Arbor thought about it and shook his head. "Oh." Ming Yasi shrugged helplessly. "But I will beat them up and reform them." The little stoic answered very smoothly, and her expression was even deadpan. "If there's no use beating them once, then beat them once every day. If that doesn't work, then I'll beat him up 3 times a day." Everyone was speechless. To be honest, being your sister-in-law might be quite tough. Ali's expression twitched slightly, and his entire face twisted strangely. Inexplicably, Ming Yas couldn't help but laugh. Suppressing the laughter that was about to slide down his lips, he nodded and said, "What do you mean?" "You may begin." Everyone. Rongqing coughed lightly and led the group of Zhangzhou guards to silently retreat a dozen or so steps, leaving an empty space for Ming Province's crown prince to do as he pleased. Ming Yasi helplessly glanced at Arbor before raising his hand slightly and saying, "Guards." 2 Ming Province guards immediately arrived behind His Highness. Their expressions were very serious, but they also carried a faint trace of apprehension as they sneaked a glance at the little stoic. Chapter 44:31. "Brother, what are you doing?" "Brother." Here was terrified and uneasy. She vaguely sensed that something bad was about to happen. Sure enough, when the 2 Nether Province guards used rods to lift her up and pin her to the ground, Akir finally sensed that something was amiss, and her body started to tremble slightly. Her big brother Yasi actually ordered people to beat her with rods in public? It wasn't that she couldn't withstand those rods with her cultivation, but she truly couldn't bear it. "Big brother." Ali also jumped in fright and hastily went up to plead for leniency. "Big brother, Akir knows she was wrong. Can't you spare her this time?" Yasi swept him a glance with an indifferent expression. Do you still want to save her? The little stoic had already spoken. How could she be satisfied if he didn't give her a good beating? Relent and save her? Ollie glanced at Yassi oddly. His lips moved for a long time, but he couldn't spit out a single word. On the other side, Akir's mournful screams had already resounded loudly. Yassi glanced at his younger brother considerately. There's no harm in saying what you want to say. Big brother, you didn't really listen to the little stoic's slanderous words, right? What, 1 beating a day? If it didn't work, then 3 beatings a day? This couldn't be true, right? Yassi swept him a glance. Although the little stoic's attitude isn't good, she's right about one thing. You and Akir should indeed be taught a lesson. One had to know that there was always someone better than you. Of course, it wasn't good to keep stirring up trouble, but it was even worse to stir up trouble when you didn't have the strength. Ollie looked at his older brother in astonishment. If it was possible, tears might be streaming down his cheeks right now. Did Big Brother really get successfully brainwashed by the damn stoic? Akir gnashed her teeth and shouted angrily, Arbor, just you wait. I won't let you off. Before she could finish speaking, her mouth was stuffed with a dirty cloth strip. The Nether Province guard who stuffed her mouth noticed Akir's murderous gaze, and his hands started trembling. Unfortunately, there was nothing he could do. With just one look from the Crown Prince, a mere guard like him could only follow orders. On the other side, a trace of killing intent flashed past Arbor's eyes. Both Yas and Ollie, who were standing beside her, saw it clearly and were startled. Ollie didn't understand this girl, but Ming Yassi understood her too well. If it was too troublesome, she would personally solve the problem. Akir, this fellow, spoke without thinking, but she didn't know that she had reached a critical juncture of life and death. Don't worry, after we go back this time, I will send her to the northern desert to train her temperament and skills. She will never appear in front of you again. When Ollie heard this, his face instantly turned pale. He turned to look at Akir, who also had a shocked expression, and hurriedly begged for mercy. Big brother, how can Akir go to a place like the northern desert? Everyone else can go there to train, so why can't she? Ming Yas glanced at him coldly. Akir was indeed extremely stupid. She still didn't know the principle that trouble comes from the mouth. He was saving her. He felt stifled just thinking about it. His sister-in-law was unreliable and the little stoic was right. Education really had to start from a young age. Back then, when she courted death, he would beat her 3 times a day. He guaranteed that she would be obedient. Now young Master Ding floated to Arbor's side and glanced at her. Release. Sir Jojo swept him a glance before his gaze landed on Ming Yas's face. Chapter 44-32. Yassi immediately understood and nodded. It's a deal. It was already pretty good that Akir's life could be preserved. Wasn't it just throwing her into the northern desert for training? Perhaps she could even improve her abilities in combat strength. Of course, whether Akir could understand Big Brother's painstaking efforts was another matter altogether. Ollie glanced at Yassi and opened his mouth, but under the latter's stern gaze he ultimately shut his mouth. At least he still had some brains and naturally saw that the little stoic already had the intention to kill Akir. If Akir still didn't know what was good for her, she would very likely become an ice-cold corpse. With this stoic's stubborn personality, if she really wanted to kill, even Big Brother probably wouldn't be able to stop her. Ding Yun's poison was related to his special ability. Normal antidotes were completely ineffective and only apothecaries could cure it. However, the level of the medicine was lower than the level of his special ability, so it couldn't be cured. Yassi glanced at him somewhat guardedly. For the majority of people, special groups like poison masters and demonic masters seemed to be classified as malicious and were very dreaded. Akir was knocked unconscious and carried away. Upon seeing this, Arbor's gaze was full of disdain. She actually fainted after just 20 or so strikes. It could be seen that she was truly spoiled since childhood. After all, she wasn't a normal person. She was clearly a spiritualist, but her body was so delicate. She was truly a dregs piled up by medicine and couldn't be compared to spiritualists who had properly advanced. When Ollie saw the little stoic's gaze, he couldn't help but feel extremely stifled. However, he learned his lesson this time and silently shut his mouth, no longer criticizing this fellow. Arbor walked along the large field and looked at the hole in the stone wall that someone had dug out. There's a tunnel next to it? It's connected to a cave about the same size as this one. Rongqing followed beside her and said, when we came we already cleaned up those corpses. At first, everyone thought it was a zombie produced by Tianyun. Rongqing paused. Now that I think about it, it really is the deep fire heart-devouring worm you spoke of. No wonder there are always 2 balls of fire emitting from the eyes after killing the corpses. That thing shouldn't be difficult to deal with. Rongqing thought of the nether fire heart-devouring worm that could be destroyed with a single slap. I just don't know how many there are. Although there were quite a few of them, if they were to really fight in this cave, they were afraid that the flying spiritual energy would accidentally injure their own people. At that time he really didn't know whether to fight or not. How big is this place? Arbor asked on a whim. I'm afraid it won't be too small. Rongqing pondered for a moment and said, just look at these 2 caves, they can hold over 20,000 people. You can see how vast this underground cave is. I wonder if the people who locked you up here can hear you, Arbor muttered to himself. What? Rongqing lowered her head and saw the little stoic take out a trumpet-shaped object. The corner of his mouth twitched unconsciously. Little rascal's hand gestures flew, and dozens of talismans were thrown out. Ripples immediately appeared in the surroundings. Rongqing raised her eyebrows. A soundproof wall? After a few whooshing sounds, a faint explosion was heard. Yasi walked up and looked around. Someone actually set up a soundproof wall? Why? Naturally, it's because I think you guys are noisy, Arbor answered honestly with disdain in her eyes. Chapter 44-33. How are we arguing? Ollie retorted indignantly. Ever since we stepped onto this lousy island, we've been locked up in the same place for more than 4 to 5 days. There's no way out at all. Arbor uttered an "oh" and raised the megaphone in his hand. What are you doing? You do it. Arbor suddenly handed the megaphone in his hand to Ollie. She felt that she needed to maintain her stoic and calm image in front of outsiders. Wouldn't it be better to find a random lackey to do this kind of shouting mission? Ollie was dumbfounded, but his hand still involuntarily took the megaphone. You shout. Arbor nodded at him. Shout what? Shout whatever you want. You can even curse. Ollie, I'm crazy, right? Casually shouting and cursing at the air? Don't dilly-dally. Arbor glanced at him with an expression that said, why are you so stupid? If Jojo's Lotus was here, there was no need for Jojo to say so much nonsense. He would know what Jojo meant with just a glance. Ollie looked at Ming Yasi and Rongqing in bewilderment. Ming Yasi said helplessly, go ahead and curse. Don't you know how to curse? How do you usually scold old who? Scold him again. Strategist old who was sitting in the group and watching the show. Was he implicated even though he was sitting so far away? Ollie was a bit spirited now and cupped his hands at old who. Big brother told me to curse, please bear with it. Why didn't you go shit when your big brother told you to? Ollie chuckled as he turned on the megaphone. He cleared his throat and let out a string of curses. Arbor stood next to Ollie calmly without even a crease in his brows. The other people in the cave couldn't take it anymore and covered their ears. The sound was too loud. It was as if thunder was raining down from the heavens, rumbling non-stop. Don't you think it's noisy, Jojo? Ming Yasi looked speechlessly at the little stoic who was as cold as snow. In the past, this little fellow would find the slightest bit of noise noisy and want to throw people out at any time. But now, this little stoic was as unmoving as a mountain, as if she hadn't heard him. Rongqing couldn't help but smirk. Don't ask. She can't hear what you're saying right now. As soon as Ollie opened his mouth, the little bastard had already blocked his hearing. A pair of pitch-black eyes turned, and its gaze wandered along the cave walls. It wasn't long before Arbor swiftly turned around and swiftly flashed towards a certain direction, and his hand was like a bolt of lightning as he grabbed out of thin air. An angry roar immediately sounded in the air. Stop cursing. Layers of ripples appeared on the cave wall in an instant. A shriveled and thin little old man suddenly appeared on the ceiling. His expression was somewhat flustered and exasperated as he angrily lowered his head and glared at them. Everyone around was shocked. When did this person appear on top of the cave wall? His aura was so faint that no one noticed it. Could it be that he used some kind of teleportation talisman? You little child, how dare you be so rude to this old man? The old man fumed as he glared at Arbor, who was hovering in the air in front of him. Arbor didn't say another word and reached out to grab his left hand. The old man retreated a step and his figure flickered like a candle. Arbor swiftly retreated several steps and threw a dozen or so reveal talismans at a corner. He swiped his hand and picked up a golden club in passing, running over with it on his shoulder. Thump 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 thump. That bandit tyrant's skills were breathtaking. Arbor swung his golden club and smashed it against the wall. Chapter 44-34. His speed was so fast that the dumbfounded crowd was completely bewildered by his actions, unable to make heads or tails of his actions. She. Ollie, who had already stopped making noise, turned to look at big brother Mingyasi. What is she doing? What was going on? Why did he feel like his intelligence couldn't keep up with the little stoic's speed? There should be quite a few people who felt the same as him among the crowd. Among so many people were Big Brother, Air Rong and young Master Ding the only ones who could understand what this fellow was doing? Breaking talisman formations. Mingyasi glanced at Ollie exasperatedly. He wanted to give him some pointers, but he muttered to himself for a moment before saying, Ollie, you should read more books. Ollie? Could it be that he couldn't keep up with the little stoic's unrestrained thoughts if he didn't read books? Was this his fault? This fellow didn't say anything when she did things, so who could understand the meaning behind her eyes? After Arbor smashed the stone wall fiercely, the stone wall directly collapsed with a loud bang, and a pile of rubble slid down with a crash. It instantly provoked a wave of furious roars. Stop, stop, stop. You little bastards, stop right there. The shriveled little old man they saw on the ceiling earlier jumped out from behind the stone wall with a bang, his face covered in dirt. At this time his wrinkled old face was completely scrunched up, and his pupils were turning upside down. His finger that was pointing at Xiaomu was trembling, as if he had suddenly contracted epilepsy and could not stop at all. Sir Jojo cupped his hands in salute and said solemnly, Senior, this junior greets you. Everyone. My heavens, this young crown prince consort was so ferocious just a moment ago. How did she become so adorable all of a sudden? Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Is my sister-in-law inside? Get the fuck out of the way, why are you blocking my way? Sister-in-law. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Sister-in-law. I heard your voice, sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Shuang, don't be so agitated. Lil sister-in-law is inside. Why are there so many people? Go away, go away. Sister-in-law, sister-in-law, did something happen to you? Did anyone bully you? I'm coming, sister-in-law. And Wushuang hopped all the way trying to see the figure in the depths of the cave. However, the large group of tall and strong soldiers in front of her blocked her line of sight. She could only keep jumping and shouting, Sister-in-law, sister-in-law. Shuang is here to save me. Arbor's face darkened as he turned to look. His line of sight was blocked by Mingyasi, young Master Ding and Air Rong. She glanced at them and suddenly asked, Is it funny? Crown Prince Rong was the first to shake his head. What's so funny? What a joke. Jojo's way of doing things is rather serious. It's not funny at all. Young Master Ding was speechless. Did this guy inherit Duan Yu's genes? Or perhaps before he left, Duan Yu had solemnly warned him about the key points he had to understand when interacting with Sir Jojo. It had to be said that Cult Master Ding was telling the truth. Along the way, when Crown Prince Rong had nothing to do, he would take out the letter the monarch gave him and study it. Sure enough, he immediately gained a favorable impression of Sir Jojo upon meeting him. Insolent child. The shriveled old man finally shouted after inhaling and exhaling for a long time. You scoundrel. Brat. Look at what you've done. The old man was fuming with rage as he pointed at the mess behind him. Chapter 44-35. Arbor followed his finger and looked in that direction. She saw several long tables and benches placed in an inner room behind the stone wall. The tables were piled with all kinds of shiny ores and crystals. A four-legged cauldron was suspended in the middle of the room. Faint green flames emerged from the bottom of the cauldron, and gusts of air hit the cauldron lid, making gurgling noises. The little stoic was curious and walked toward that cauldron. This is the legendary weapon refining cauldron ranked second, the Heavenly Forge Cauldron? When everyone heard the words Heavenly Forge Cauldron, their expressions immediately changed, and their gazes simultaneously looked toward that lean and skinny little old man. The old man was dressed in gray and coarse hemp clothing. His hair was disheveled and his face was covered in dirt, and his body emitted a sour stench. From the looks of it, he had been standing in this inner room for who knew how long. He probably hadn't taken a bath. "Who are you, little doll?" The old man stroked his 3-inch short beard and glanced at her. He said in deadly earnest, "You actually know the name of this old man's heavenly forge cauldron. This old man has been in seclusion for many years, so I didn't know there was someone in this world who could recognize this old man's heavenly forge cauldron. You are Senior Hao Guang, right?" "That's right." Hao Guang put on a gratified expression and stroked his short beard again, his expression easing for a rare moment. "What is this little doll's name and who is your master?" "Do you recognize Ancestor Xuanji?" the little stoic asked indifferently. Her words were like a stone thrown into a lake, immediately causing people's moods to fluctuate wildly, creating layers of ripples. Hao Guang abruptly widened his eyes and looked at her cautiously. "Who are you?" "I am Ancestor Xuanji's personal disciple." Arbor stood with her hands behind her back and got straight to the point. Her expression was extremely solemn, cold, and unsmiling. But it was this serious little appearance that made Ming Yasi, Rong Qing, and Ding Yun's lips twitch uncontrollably. They kept feeling that this little stoic in front of them was a bit like a quack. "What?" "I am the second-generation head of the Xuanji school." The little stoic's serious face was unperturbed as she straightened her back and stood in front of the light. "Arbor." Everyone suddenly realized that Senior Scattered Light's old face had changed a lot. His face was flashing with different colors and it was very exciting. He was stunned for a few seconds before he snapped, "What did you say?" "I'm your second-generation sect master," Arbor continued expressionlessly. "Do you know Seniors Qin Qi and Lu Zheng?" Hao Guang's body trembled slightly. Suddenly he opened his small eyes wide. Looking at his shocked expression, his eyeballs almost fell out of their sockets. "Qin Qi? Lu Zheng? You really are you? The second-generation sect master of the Xuanji school?" If he had not come into contact with Qin Qi and Lu Zheng, how would he know their names? Moreover, the little girl's serious expression made him unable to think of anything else. With this kind of stoic face, she probably disdained to lie to deceive people. Besides, this matter couldn't be concealed for too long to begin with. Whether she was the second-generation sect master or not, he would eventually encounter Qin Qi and Lu Zheng in the future and he would know after asking. "Do you have any proof?" Arbor thought for a moment. "I gave the nameplates of your 103 first-generation disciples to Seniors Qin Qi and Lu Zheng. Your name should be on them." Hao Guang's eyes widened. "You?" "I've already assimilated the Xuanji pill that Ancestor Xuanji gave me," the little stoic continued to say in a shocking manner. She shook her head. "There's no other proof." Chapter 44-36. But at this point, as long as Hao Guang wasn't an idiot, he should know that the stoic face didn't lie to him. This fellow quickly changed his indignant expression and stared at Arbor with bright eyes. He cupped his hands in greeting and said, "Greetings, second faction master." The second-generation sect master, Lord Qiao, looked at him expressionlessly. "Tell me, why did you lock them up here?" Hao Guang hastily grumbled, his expression especially aggrieved and helpless. "Second faction master, this subordinate didn't want to do this. But a large group of them are making a racket. It's truly annoying." Ali's eyes immediately widened. "Senior Hao Guang, you really lured us ashore and imprisoned us because we were making a racket? But although we made a racket for a day or two, we will leave in the end. Wouldn't it be even more noisy if you imprison us on the island like this?" They weren't a bunch of dead people, so they naturally would do their best to find a way out. How could they not make a ruckus after going back and forth? Of course it can't be because of that senseless reason. Hao Guang glared at him grumpily and looked at the people standing around the little stoic as if she wanted to say something but hesitated. He turned to look at Arbor and said, "Second faction master, there's a reason for this. The Tianji Mystic Realm in the Snow Ridge Holy Land will open in a few days." That old man stroked his short beard and harumphed. "If these people accidentally step inside, humph, they will die without a doubt. One of the entrances is at the bottom of the sea where the formation is set up. I lured them ashore so that they wouldn't continue to dawdle there. If these people insist on staying there, I reckon they won't be far from death." Arbor glanced at him and said with a slight nod, "Many thanks." If these bumpkins really entered that mystic realm, they wouldn't be able to get help even if they cried for help. It would be a joke if the elites of the 3 provinces were scattered in a lousy mystic realm before they were assembled. Senior Hao Guang lamented. Actually, there are at least 2 mystic realm entrances nearby. The one at the bottom of the sea is one of them. There's a realm of misfortune on the island. Speaking of which, when I came out of seclusion today, I sensed that the realm of misfortune had disappeared for no reason. I don't know what happened. Hao Guang sighed with a perplexed expression. Young Master Ding silently glanced at the little stoic beside him. Just as the latter was about to speak, he heard a joyful cry. Sister-in-law. And Wushuang finally squeezed through the crowd and ran to her side with a cheer. I didn't hear wrongly. And Wushuang tilted her head with a grin and quickly hopped up to her. You're really here. It's great to see you. Princess Wushuang looked around her and asked, Where is my eldest brother? Speaking of this, Sir Jojo was a little angry. His little stoic face tightened as he said, Your big brother has been running for a long time. We don't even know where he is now. Logically speaking, after the realm of misfortune was broken, Mo Lien and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal should have been able to sense her aura. But now, the sapling also spread out its hands, indicating that neither of them had contacted it. Eldest brother is missing? And Wushuang was astonished. No wonder it was so strange. She knew it. If sister-in-law was here, how could eldest brother not be by her side? Sister-in-law, don't worry. I'll accompany you to find him. Princess Wushuang grasped in Wushuang's small hand. She looked at the old man in astonishment as if she had just realized that there was someone in front of her. The senior is... Chapter 4437. This is Senior Hao Guang. As soon as Arbor finished speaking, and Wushuang opened her mouth wide. Third young Master Fu also looked at the old man in surprise. This ordinary-looking old man standing with his head held high turned out to be the legendary divine weapon master, Senior Hao Guang. The old man who owned the heavenly forging furnace. Third young Master Fu and Princess Wushuang cupped their hands and greeted him. Greetings, Senior Hao Guang. It's rumored that Senior Hao Guang lives near the Snow Ridge Holy Ground. I didn't expect to see him today. Princess Wushuang was very excited. I heard that Senior's heavenly forging furnace is known as the strongest furnace in the world. Can I have a look at it? The old man said proudly, You have good taste. He stepped aside and waved his hand. The furnace hanging in the middle of the room fell into his palm with a whoosh. It shrunk to 2 feet in size and started to burn. And Wushuang's little face was full of curiosity. She was about to touch the furnace when Arbor grabbed her. Arbor shook his head at her. The furnace fire is full of yang energy. I'm afraid your touch will be hurt. The old man was the owner of the heavenly forging furnace, so he would not be hurt by it. As for other people, if they touched it casually, the consequences could be foreseen. Oh. And Wushuang immediately understood. She nodded her head repeatedly. Then she rolled her big eyes in a circle. Seeing her expression, Arbor could not help but laugh secretly. This guy was blatantly coveting the old man's heavenly forging furnace. Thinking that he had also planned to rob the old man's heavenly forging furnace, Arbor could not help but raise his hand to scratch his chin and pull in Wushuang again. And Wushuang was staring at the heavenly forging furnace with all her attention. At this moment she was pulled back by Arbor and slightly came back to her senses. She smiled at the old man awkwardly. Senior Hao Guang, by the way, have you lived here for a long time to forge weapons? Hao Guang nodded. Of course. The old man looked at Wushuang suspiciously. Maybe the princess's eyes were too obvious. You're also interested in refining? Princess Wushuang nodded without hesitation and took out something from her pocket. Senior, please take a look. Arbor and third young Master Fu's eyelids twitched slightly. They saw the old man take the ring from Wushuang's hand and touch it in surprise. With a flick of his hand, a stream of light slid across the ring. It instantly turned into a long sword and fell into the old man's palm. The 3-foot-long green peak shone with a cold sword light. This sword was the frost sword that the crown prince had given to the princess. The blade itself was covered with a layer of frost power. When the sword was swung, frost energy would constantly emit. Even spirit realm cultivators would find it difficult to get close to him, let alone ordinary people. Some of the spirit realm soldiers sitting nearby felt a layer of coldness pass through their clothes. They couldn't help but shiver as faint sparks appeared in their eyes. What a peerless sword. Good, it's really a peerless sword. The old man's eyes shone with a strange light. It's a perfect form, close to a sacred weapon. I've been in seclusion for many years. I didn't know that there was another divine weapon master in this world. And Wushuang pouted and tilted her head. Senior Hao Guang, how do you know that this sword wasn't made for me? Hao Guang immediately glared at her and rolled his eyes. Do you think I'm a fool? This old man has observed your hands and I can tell that they are not used for refining tools. Ha! And Wushuang snorted. Chapter 44:38. Rolling her eyes, she raised her small white hand and reached out to Hao Guang. Give it back. Hao Guang was holding the sword and admiring it carefully. Hearing An Wushuang's words, he said impatiently, Wait. What are you waiting for? And Wushuang glanced at him and continued to poke him with her finger. Give it back. Don't dawdle. It's my sword. This sword has a talisman array attached to it. The power of frost is not affected at all. The old man sighed. There are always new talents in every generation. Girl, don't rush to take it back. Hao Guang's dog eyes were almost shining. May I ask who made this sword? Princess Wushuang smiled at him and crooked her small hand at him. Mr. Jojo looked at Hao Guang expressionlessly. He stretched his head and approached Wushuang. Senior Hao Guang, is this heavenly forging furnace for sale? Third young master Fu pressed his twitching eyebrows and looked at Arbor. He said helplessly, Shuang. And Wushuang glanced back at him and then turned to the old man. Senior Hao Guang, is it for sale? And Wushuang snatched the sword from his hand, turned it around and put the ring on her finger. Guess, how old was this divine weapon grandmaster when he forged this sword? She asked. Guess, how old was the divine weapon grandmaster when he forged this sword? Miss Wushuang said proudly. Obviously she didn't want the old man to guess. She said, 21 years old. The old man opened his small eyes wide. His eyes were shining. Is it for sale? Miss Wushuang asked again. Anyway, it will be more useful in your hands than in his. You don't want this divine weapon to be covered in dust, master? The old man thought for a while and coughed. You just want to find an excellent heavenly forging furnace, right? I can provide one for you. But not this heavenly forging furnace. The old man's eyes turned slightly and he said with a smile, I see that you are all young talents and your cultivations are very good. How about this? I'll point you in the right direction. Inside there, you'll definitely be able to find a refining furnace that's even better than the heavenly forging furnace. Sure enough, as soon as the old man said this, Wushuang immediately took the bait and asked with sparkling eyes, Where? Arbor was speechless. A mystic realm. Fecta's secret realm. The old man stroked his beard and smiled. Then he glanced at the young lady and said, Second headmaster. You don't have to go. Let the young people take risks and gain experience. It will be good for their cultivation in the future. And Wushuang was expressionless. My sister-in-law is a few years younger than me. Third young master Fu couldn't help but laugh. He turned to Hao Guang and said, Senior, may I know which expert created this Tianji secret realm? You don't need to know. You just need to know that this is a mystic realm set up by a shameless old bastard. Senior Scattered Light said disdainfully as if someone had stepped on his sore spot. Arbor blinked his eyes and felt that the old bastard's name sounded familiar. He carefully pondered over the Fecta secret realm several times and couldn't help but frown. Fecta Z. Great Master of Mechanisms and Concealed Weapons Senior Tianjizi? Third young Master Fu was shocked. Heavens, how many legendary old seniors were hidden in the Snow Ridge Holy Land of the Forgotten River realm? The old man snorted and glared at third young Master Fu. What's there to be surprised about? That old bastard is the one who activated it. On the other hand, Qiao Mu was also a bit taken aback. She really hadn't thought about it this way before. Chapter 44:39. She really didn't expect that the old scoundrel whom seniors Lu Zheng and Qin Qi scolded countless times was actually that trap and concealed weapons master. Fate had to start from the Holy Water Sect's Maple Pavilion, right? At that time, the Tianji treasure blueprint created by Senior Tianji Z chased after her with all its might. Duan Yu and Emolian even smugly thought that it was because of her outstanding aptitude. Now it seemed that it was most likely due to her bloodline. What kind of ill-fated fate was this? Her encounter with the two ancestors was actually so bizarre. That's right, according to Qin Qi, Lu Zheng and Yingguang, Arbor had reason to believe that this Senior Tianjizi was that heartless and unfaithful heartless man who betrayed Senior Xuanji. In addition, Senior Xuanji's bizarre third condition was that if she met Tianjizi's disciple in the future, she had to use her strength to crush him and slap his face from this. It could be seen that this was indeed a bizarre ill-fated fate, not two. She didn't expect to meet the two ancestors like this. Everyone secretly glanced at her stoic face. There seemed to be undulating waves under her stoic and serene appearance. Why? Everyone was puzzled and looked at Sir Jojo's serene expression. What is it? Is there a problem? And Wushuang asked hastily. Arbor shook her head and looked up at the old man. When will the mystic realm open? Probably in the next 1 or 2 days. The old man's expression suddenly paused and he hastily shouted, Second sect master, you can't go in. You still have to lead our Xuanji sect to glory. She couldn't just die like this in the mystic realm that the old scoundrel set up. Arbor's expression was unruffled as she calmly said, I must go. The old man couldn't help but secretly regret it. If he had known earlier, he wouldn't have tricked the little girl next to him. The second sect master was actually so loyal. She was going to accompany her friends on an adventure, right? Second sect master, please reconsider. Why must you go to a dangerous place? How can young people like them go to such a dangerous place? You shouldn't set foot in it. I'm going to slap their faces. Everyone looked at her in bewilderment, thinking that they had misheard. Shouldn't Jodo-sama say, wherever my friends are, I'll be there? Your sect leader Xuanji has given me a strange mission. It's time to complete it. The corner of the old man's mouth twitched. Looking at the expressions of the young masters around the young lady, they were all trying their best to endure something. The old man suddenly burst into laughter. As he laughed, he looked at Crown Prince Rong and the others suspiciously. These people also looked like they wanted to laugh, but why were they holding it in? Don't you feel suffocated? Second sect leader, what do you mean? Arbor glanced at him coldly. Your sect master Xuanji asked me to find the descendant of Tianjizi's ancestor and slap his face. I thought about it. What's the point of slapping my disciple's face? Why don't I just enter his secret realm and crack all his traps and give him a slap in the face? What do you think? Isn't it precisely because you can't break his mechanism that you're wasting your time here for so long? Hao Guang was stunned, then burst into laughter. He laughed so hard that he kept slapping his thighs. Good. This is how the second sect master of Xuanji school should be. Arbor glanced at him. Rong Qing and the others couldn't help but twitch their mouths. How did the Xuanji school disciples come up with the title of second sect master? Second sect master, I'll prepare some defensive equipment for you. You must accept it. Don't worry, I've never thought of rejecting. Chapter 4440. And Wushuang looked at the old man's back view strangely. What's going on? Was I hallucinating? Why do I feel that this weird old man keeps calling you old? Does he think that you are very old? Yes. And Wushuang, third young master Fu said with a smile. The crown princess has inherited the position of the second-generation sect master of the Xuanji sect. I'm afraid that senior Hao Guang thinks that the crown princess just looks young. Everyone, they really did not know what to say. However, according to common sense, this was indeed the case. In the divine lands, very few female cultivators of the young crown princess age could reach the immortal state. Not to mention the biased heavenly Tao, even among the talented juniors in the family, there were very few who could reach the immortal state at this age. It was no wonder that senior Hao Guang would think this way. No one thought of correcting Hao Guang's mistake. They just watched in silence and watched. Swoosh. The venerable peach blossom immortal pulled at one end of a wooden vine on the wall of the cave. I'll go up first. If there's no problem, you can come up, he said and looked back at Emolian, who was frowning silently. Alright, don't think about it. Seeing him like this, the venerable peach blossom immortal could not help but roll his eyes. Who asked us to be so unlucky? We just got out of the realm of misfortune and accidentally fell into a pit. When the realm of misfortune broke and they both fell out, they should have been out of danger. Unfortunately, the place where they fell was a huge sinkhole. It was a man-eating sinkhole. A terrifying whirlpool pulled them down and dragged them into the depths of the cave in the blink of an eye. There were countless small caves of various sizes. The two wandered around for a long time and found that it was like a maze. If they could look down from above, they would definitely find this interesting place. There were tens of thousands of small caves connected to small caves. At first glance, they were densely packed like a beehive. However, the most interesting thing was that their divine senses were blocked. They could not fly. Therefore, they could not fly up and see the general situation of this place clearly. Therefore, a certain peach blossom suggested that he should climb up first to see what was going on. The two of them did not know what kind of damned place this was. Since it was such a trap, they naturally carried a trace of vigilance as they moved. Both of them had been fooled for no reason, so their moods were naturally not good. Will Jojo be anxious? Emolien asked in a low voice. Yes, it's definitely urgent. Aren't we anxious too? The venerable peach blossom immortal tapped his foot lightly and pulled on the winding vines, climbing all the way up. He stretched out a hand and waved at him. Wait for me. Emolien raised her head to look at him. This fellow's speed was very fast. In just a short while he had already crawled until he was only a black dot. Prince Emo tried to contact Little Tree but to no avail. Since even divine sense could be blocked, it was obvious that external objects could not be contacted. With his consciousness sealed, he couldn't even summon Little Seven. Prince Emo could only stand at the bottom of the cave wall and pace back and forth, counting mushrooms. He was extremely frustrated. Suddenly, Emolien heard a series of shattering noises, and in the nick of time he dodged to the side. He saw a slender white figure suddenly descend from the sky. Just as he was about to crash headfirst into the ground, Crown Prince Emo reluctantly went up to give him a kick. Out of camaraderie, the venerable peach blossom immortal staggered and swayed. He barely stabilized himself. Why did you kick me? Chapter 44-41. Emolien rushed forward, summoned Raven Moon and stabbed at his shoulder. He-Chin hurriedly turned his head to take a look, only to see that His Highness the Crown Prince's hand was extremely fast. In a split second, Raven Moon had picked up a wisp of ghostly fire on his shoulder and flung it at the cave wall. A sharp sound came from the green fire as if something was about to fly out of the fire. Ma Shurchin suddenly threw a seed over. Under the rapid growth of the wood spirit, the seed sprouted roots, branches and leaves, growing into a man-eating flower with a mouth full of saw teeth. It swallowed the green fire into its stomach. It chewed everything clean along with the thing in the fire. Then the man-eating flower drooped its head, and the entire flower disintegrated along with the wood spirit. Only a small puddle of green juice was left on the ground. Prince Emo withdrew his Raven Moon and silently took a few steps back. The heart-devouring worm of nether fire? He-Chin was a little stunned and turned to look at Emolien. The latter nodded slightly and muttered to herself for a moment. It should be. Don't these things live on the bodies of dead people? The venerable peach blossom immortal hurriedly took off his outerwear and threw it far away, a trace of disgust appearing on his face. It was so disgusting. He had wanted to take an outerwear from his inner world to change into. But the moment he moved, he realized he was done for. He couldn't open his inner world. Without divine sense, he naturally couldn't open his inner world. He had long forgotten about this. Looking at the outerwear he had thrown to a corner of the cave wall and landed on the damp ground, the venerable peach blossom immortal looked as if the sky was about to collapse. He wore a plain white inner garment and looked back at Emolien with a blank expression. That sad little expression was simply so unbearable. He finally understood why Sir Jojo liked to carry a small floral bag every time he went out for training. That was because the inner world wasn't omnipotent and could be sealed and blocked from time to time. Emolien was speechless. After thinking for a while, she reached into her clothes and took out a storage talisman and threw it into the air. After rummaging through the storage talisman, he took out a black robe and threw it to the senior immortal. Only then did he put away his resentful expression and put on his outer robe, muttering, "Jojo is biased. Why do you have a storage talisman and I don't?" Emolien said expressionlessly, "You have at least 20 or 30 storage talismans of this size with you. You took them all into your inner world. Who are you blaming?" The venerable peach blossom immortal was speechless. This fellow's figure was similar to Emolien's. Naturally, he could wear the crown prince's outer robe. After changing into a clean and fresh set of ink-colored clothes, a certain someone said gloomily, if only Jojo was here. Then he could enter the star domain to wash up and change into clean clothes. No, Jojo would probably be in trouble here too. After all, this strange place blocked the consciousness. Whoever came here would be in trouble. Thinking of this, he couldn't be bothered to dwell on it. He turned to look at Emolien and said with a serious expression, when I climbed up just now, I felt an irresistible force. Emolien raised her eyebrows. An irresistible suction force pulled me down. It felt like after we fell out of the realm of misfortune, we were pulled into the sinkhole by an irresistible force. It was exactly the same. Prince Emo frowned slightly. What should we do? This was hilarious. Even Hu Shurchen didn't know what to do. Now Prince Emo was asking him. He could only use a relaxed tone to comfort him without much sincerity. Don't panic. There will be a way to solve it. At least the situation wasn't the worst yet. Chapter 44-42. The Venerable Immortal was unreliable, but Emolien was still reliable. At least, Prince Mo's storage talismans, food, drinking water, and all sorts of resources were all available. Also, who knew if it was because he had been assimilated by his wifey? Prince Emo had always liked to stuff talismans in his arms, waist, and sleeves, so he wasn't so poor that it made one's hair stand on end. They still had hope. The Venerable Immortal looked at him enviously and swore, next time I'll stuff more things on me too. I definitely won't collect them all into my inner world. Actually, this was his Qiao's fault. This fellow had always lived in Qiao's star domain and had everything ready for him. He didn't need the Venerable Immortal to prepare anything. He only needed to call Qiao for whatever he wanted if Emolien didn't come down with him this time, and he was the only one left in this ghastly place. The Venerable Immortal couldn't help shuddering. Who knew when he would recover his divine sense? Although with his cultivation he wouldn't starve to death or thirst even if he didn't eat or drink for a year, but he didn't want to become an unkempt old scavenger covered in filth. At this thought, the Venerable Immortal couldn't help shuddering again. All the hair on his body stood on end. Since going up doesn't work, then we'll go down, Molien said after a moment of contemplation. She took out several black beads from her storage talisman. What are these? Earth fire grenades, a type of concealed weapon. Prince Emo didn't have the mood to continue talking nonsense with He Shichen and threw out 2 earth fire grenades. Once the objects landed in the corner of the cave wall, they immediately exploded with a huge rumble. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal blinked. How, what a powerful firearm. It's not affected in the slightest after landing in the water. Must be that brat Duanyu who did it. Emolien chuckled in response to the Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's question. A small hole was blasted out of the cave wall, and the area they were in collapsed several feet. If one looked down from the sky, they would see that the earth fire grenades had blasted out a small hole in one of the tens of thousands of beehives. What's the point of blowing it up here? Wouldn't it still explode into another cave? They had been walking in this place for at least 2 hours. They had been going around and around all kinds of caves of various sizes. Are you stupid? Emolien said coldly, we're going around in circles in the cave. There's no need to blast it open. The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal immediately understood. He widened his eyes slightly and asked, You want to blast open a passageway? Then you're really fierce. Looking at his refined and elegant appearance as well as his elegant and handsome appearance, he was like an orchid tree in the wind. Sir Venerable Immortal tried his best to pin those gentle and refined words on Emolien, and he finally concluded with one word. Savage. But this guy was actually so ferocious, which was completely inconsistent with his appearance. Although this earthly fire lightning is useful, do we have that many earthly fire lightnings? Reverend Immortal lowered his voice slightly. He silently glanced at the black box the Crown Prince took out from his storage talisman. When he opened the box, he saw several dozen rows of earthly fire lightning neatly arranged inside. Duan, you can actually give you so many? The Venerable Peach Blossom Immortal looked at him in astonishment. Since when did the relationship between the two of them become so good? Weren't they love rivals? Weren't they political enemies? Didn't they dislike each other and feel uncomfortable if they didn't exchange a few words when they met? Chapter 44-43. I did. Emolienne said calmly. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal's eyes widened. You used Jojo to exchange? I'm going to tell Jojo. You used her to exchange for earth fire grenades. You bastard, you're not a good person. Frem. Emolienne glanced at him, then threw out 2 more earth fire grenades. She said nonchalantly, I used my space to refine weapons in exchange. Boom. The cave continued to collapse. The ground in front of them opened up and another cave appeared. Stay behind and keep your distance. Let me know if I stray off course. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal nodded. All right. The 2 of them walked in a straight line, using earth fire grenades to blast open a tunnel. If there were outsiders present, they would definitely be amazed, right? They couldn't get out even after going around in circles, right? Then they would blast open a straight line and see who could stop them. Lord Jojo didn't know that the 2 idiots were still busy blasting open the walls underground. Everyone felt that the ground would occasionally shake, but the tremors weren't too big. Therefore, no one raised any questions despite their worries. Second Sect Master, Second Sect Master. The old man stepped out of the inner room excitedly, holding a pile of defensive spirit weapons in his hands. Take a look and see if these are to your liking? Second Sect Master, these are for you. The old man stuffed a ring into her hands, his face full of pride. These are the best defensive divine weapons I've ever refined. Second Sect Master, keep them with you at all times. I guarantee your safety. Xiao Mu swept him a glance and nodded before hugging the large pile of things the old man handed over to her. Were you the one who caused those nether fire heart-devouring worms outside? The old man hurriedly shook his head. Of course not. Why would I create such disgusting things? They escaped from the old bastard's mystic realm. As he spoke, he scratched his head in embarrassment. I've been to the Fecta mystic realm several times, but every time I entered, the entrance was completely different from the last time. As he spoke, he placed several handmade maps in Arbor's hands, which were holding a pile of defensive spiritual artifacts. These are the places I've been to. The last time I went in, I accidentally triggered a mechanism and a group of heart-devouring worms flew out. They even followed me out of the secret realm. Where are the corpses? The corpses should belong to the adventurers who came to the island to train over the years. Hao Guang curled his lips and said, they always say that there are treasures in the holy land of Snowy Ridge, including the Dragon King's secret treasure. Actually, the Snow Mountain range is completely barren. There's nothing there at all. The only possibility is that the nearby sea region is connected to a mysterious abyss of the sacrificial sea. There might be secret treasures in the Fecta secret realm, but are they something that humans can take out? How many people go in and die? They can't come out at all. The old man looked at Arbor worriedly. Second Sect Master, I was wrong. I just wanted to trick those juniors to go in and suffer. I didn't expect you to go in as well. It's best if we don't go in if we can. That old bastard Fecta is not easy to deal with. Arbor nodded, but his expression was firm. Don't worry. I'll keep an eye on them. I'll make sure that the number of people who go in will come out. Hao Guang glared at him. Second Sect Master, I'm just worried about you. The others were none of his business. Arbor patted him on the shoulder. Don't worry. Chapter 44-44. Why do I feel so uneasy? Mi Guang thought. Lord Saintess. Crown Princess. Princess Wushuang. Third Young Master. A cacophony of voices came from behind the crowd. Arbor didn't even need to look back to know that the youths of the Phoenix clan and the Purple Forest Guards had finally arrived. They're here. Don't push. More and more people gathered. Arbor couldn't help but facepalm. There are too many people. Arbor looked expressionlessly at Ming Yasi and the others. The consequences will be unimaginable if chaos ensues. Tell us what to do. Crown Prince Rong quickly nodded. We'll just do as you say. Arbor glanced at the crowd. Let them stay here for now. I'll go to the beach with Wushuang and wait. No, I want to go with them. Crown Prince Rong shook his head and refused decisively. What a joke. If his emperor knew that he had left the little ancestor alone in such a dangerous situation, how could he expect to live a good life in the future? Arbor glanced at him and nodded. All right then. Make arrangements for them. While speaking, Feng Zhangqing and the others finally managed to squeeze over. They wiped their sweat and asked, why are there so many people? Tongqing, come with me to the Fecta secret realm. Zhangfei, take the clansmen and the purple forest guards and stay here temporarily to wait for my big brother. No matter how big the drill ground was, it still felt congested with 30,000 people crammed into it. Feng Zhangfei glared at him. Want to go too? Don't mess around. Feng Zhangfei hurriedly comforted his jumpy younger brother and said in a low voice, stay here and take care of the clansmen. Feng Zhangfei curled his lips unwillingly. The spirit energy on this deserted island is quite dense, Arbor said calmly. It's also very spacious. When the matter is settled, we might as well train here. He felt that it was better than Lisha Island. Most importantly, she had already shed all pretense of cordiality with the Forgotten River Dragon clan. Wasn't it reasonable for her to establish her own clan? This place was neither close nor far from the Forgotten River Dragon clan's territory. They were separated by a snowy ridge. Presumably, the Forgotten River Dragon clan wouldn't be so shameless as to visit this deserted island. All right. Without waiting for Crown Prince Rong's reply, Ming Yasi nodded with a cold expression. Wasn't it just requisitioning an island in the River of Forgetfulness? It didn't matter to him where he requisitioned. Come over here. Arbor moved to the side and walked out of the crowd. Many people who were going to the secret realm quickly gathered around him. Ollie glanced in that direction and snorted as he turned around to face the soldiers. What are you looking at? Don't you have anything better to do? All of them were cultivating on the ground. It's still early. We have to stay here for a few more days. And Wushuang, Fu San, Feng Chongqing and Rongqing stood together and whispered a few words. On the other side, young Master Ding and Ming Yasi looked at each other in disgust, then hurriedly turned their gazes elsewhere. Arbor distributed a large pile of defensive spirit artifacts that Senior Scattered Light had forged to the people present. When he passed them to Ding Yun, his hand paused slightly. He asked expressionlessly, are you going to stay here and wait for Sikong Fuling? No need. Young Master Ding giggled. That girl Fuling is very clever. He should be here soon. Most importantly, a place like the Fecta Secret Realm is so interesting just thinking about it. How can I miss out on the fun? Arbor tossed the items into his hands, turned around and glanced at the 6 people. Go. Chapter 44-45. How could Senior Scattered Light be at ease? When he heard that they were about to set off now, he hastily ran out of the inner room and shouted repeatedly, Second Sect Master, this subordinate will bring you there. Be careful, there's a realm of misfortune on this island that can kill without spilling blood. If you fall inside, you'll be even more troublesome than that old geezer Tianjizi. That was a natural realm of misfortune. It was possible to break through it with humans, but a natural mystic realm, seriously, there was nothing more to say. Arbor expressionlessly looked at Senior Scattered Light. Ding Yun couldn't resist chuckling and said in a low voice, Senior Scattered Light, don't worry for nothing. That whatever realm of misfortune it's already, let's go. The little stoic raised her small fist and directly cut off young Master Ding's nonsense. With a serious expression, she turned around and strode toward the tunnel outside the karst cave. Scattered Light glanced at the little stoic in confusion before turning to look at young Master Ding, who was holding back his laughter. He snorted and said with a glare, hurry and follow. Arbor's group of 7 followed Senior Scattered Light, who was nagging as he led the way, out of the underground karst cave and walked through the long underground tunnel. After 30 minutes they finally emerged from the surface, and a vast expanse of snow reappeared before their eyes. Hao Guang said complacently, only this old man can bring you out of this place so quickly. If you wander around inside, you might not be able to walk out even after several days and nights. Let me tell you, this isn't the most complicated terrain. Haha, if one of you happens to fall into the 1,000 caverns and 10,000 caves, that's really bad luck, ha. As if he thought of something amusing, this old man actually started laughing out loud on his own halfway through his speech. Arbor kept a straight face and asked without batting an eyelid, what do you mean? After laughing heartily for a while, the old man couldn't resist patting his head and saying, I forgot that you guys are very lucky and didn't fall into the 1,000 caverns and 10,000 caves. That place is truly troublesome. Caves are connected to caves, and there are tens of thousands of caves of various sizes. The main thing is that divine senses are blocked, and you can't even use your inner world. If you go to that ghastly place, there's no escape from bad luck. If you're lucky, you might be able to escape from there after 3 to 5 months. Then what about bad luck, Senior? Princess Wushuang asked curiously. Bad luck? Hehe, you can stay here for a long time. The old man stroked his beard and said proudly, maybe after 30 years his wife will have run away with someone else, and he will still be counting mushrooms in that hole. Ah. Oh, that's not right. No matter how strong a cultivator is, if he doesn't eat or drink for 30 years, he probably won't be able to survive. The corners of Crown Prince Rong's mouth twitched. Senior, have you stayed in the 1,000 caves before? The old man blew his beard and glared at Crown Prince Rong. That's right. I did stay there for 3 months. He drew hundreds of maps. I'm finally out. Ah. Senior scattered light, who was good at drawing, revealed a boastful expression. You guys haven't been to that place before. If you have, you'll know how amazing one's wisdom is to be able to come out. Everyone couldn't bear to listen to his boasting and hurriedly interrupted. Senior, let's go to the beach quickly. If we miss the opening of the mystic realm, it won't be worth it. What's the rush? The old man rolled his eyes at them. Although the mystic realm opens these 2 days, how could it be so coincidental that it opens when you go there? Chapter 44-46. Arbor looked ahead expressionlessly and said coldly, what's there to brag about? You sealed your inner world for 3 months. You couldn't eat, drink, wash, or even change your clothes. When you came out, you were still a barbarian. The old man's expression twisted slightly. Thinking of the painful experience, he couldn't help but want to bang his head against the wall. In the past, he hated making spatial artifacts the most, but after this guy made a bunch of spatial artifacts and hung them on his waist. He didn't dare to be careless anymore. No matter how strong a cultivator was, when they sealed their inner world, they could only stare at their own consciousness and roll their eyes. The 7 of them followed the angry old man to the beach. Suddenly, they stopped and looked at the big ship on the beach with a surprised expression. Seeing the ship, Rongqing seemed to have thought of something. Oh right, Senior, where's our previous ship? Did you hide it all? Mi Guang snorted. So many ships. Don't you find it annoying to have so many noisy ships parked there? I kept them all in the sealing ball. Everyone was silent. They looked at each other and moved their gazes to the ship on the beach. A ladder was put down from the ship. A group of people walked out and walked down the stairs. Arbor recognized at a glance that the girl walking at the front was the City of Shadows' 4th Miss, Mu Xiaoxue. The girl's face was beautiful and gentle. There was a mole at the corner of her eye. She didn't move like Sir Jojo. This weak little beauty was like a piece of paper that would be blown away by the wind. Even her voice was as soft as a mosquito. Arbor met her face to face and his gaze froze. For some reason, every time Arbor saw this daughter of the City of Shadows' first city lord, Mu Jinghong, he felt a strange sense of familiarity. The girl was a year younger than him. Logically speaking, such a weak and fragile appearance wouldn't enter Sir Jojo's eyes. But now he had a trace of curiosity. The 2 flower protectors, Gu Yishuan and Zhao Yi, followed behind as expected. When everyone got off the boat, the 2 men, one in front and one at the back, held the corner of Mu Xiaoshue's dress while the other held Princess Xiaoshue's hand and led her down step by step. Arbor looked on expressionlessly, and Wushuang couldn't help but burst into laughter. And her memory was really bad. In fact, she should have seen the little princess of the City of Shadows before. Crown Princess. Mu Xiaoxue came forward and bowed politely. Her voice was very gentle and amiable, like a feather brushing one's heart. Jojo asked stiffly, "Why are you here?" Before the little princess could answer, Zhao Yi was the first to get angry. "Crown Princess, we're not from China. You'd better be more polite." And Wushuang rolled her eyes. "How is my sister-in-law rude? You're thinking too much. Don't tell me we all have to be like you, going up to your princess and holding her paws." Mu Xiaoxue patted the back of Zhao Yi's hand and said softly, "Senior brother Zhao, don't be angry. The crown princess didn't mean to target me. She's used to being so direct. It was fine when she didn't speak. Once she spoke, Rongqing, Ding Yun and Wushuang, and the others all showed an indescribable expression. Her voice was too soft and coquettish, as if her bones had been extracted. Everyone couldn't help but tremble. The crown princess doesn't know. In the morning, a trace of the divine domain flowed on the surface of the sea, and the aura of divine power spread. We followed it and came here. Chapter 44-47. Arbor was a little surprised and glanced at Mu Xiaoxue. You. Gu Yishuan frowned. That's us. Why? There are more than 100 people in the City of Shadows. What can I do for you, Crown Princess? Arbor glanced at him and didn't say anything else. In fact, it didn't matter to her whether these people came or not. In any case, everyone would have to rely on their own abilities to enter the mystic realm. She really couldn't be bothered with the affairs of other people. Some people are always high and mighty, but don't forget that this isn't the territory of the divine land. You can do whatever you want. A cold-faced young woman followed Mu Xiaoxue and the others down the stairs and shot a cold glance in Qiao Mu's direction. This is the Forgetting River. To the master of the Forgetting River, we and you are all outsiders. There's no difference. The woman stood beside Mu Xiaoxue and the others, her eyes full of provocation. She glanced at Arbor and then at Princess Wushuang. And Wushuang was dumbfounded. She looked the woman up and down. Who are you? Why are you staring at us like that? Lin Miao was fuming with anger. She hadn't expected Princess Wushuang to not remember who she was. She had always remembered the evil that Princess Wushuang had done to her. She didn't expect that she didn't take her seriously at all. On the other side, Arbor thought to himself, Princess Wushuang's memory is so bad. This little girl was so pitiful. She was so young, yet she was suffering from teenage girl dementia. When she was free, Jojo should treat her properly. Fortunately, the awkward atmosphere didn't last long. Princess Wushuang's personal guard and Yang couldn't help but step forward and whisper, Princess, you've seen this aunt on the street. Lin Miao of the Lin family in Rong City. You even asked me to investigate her family. Oh, is that so? And Wushuang was still in a daze. Although she said, a few times, it was obvious that she had long forgotten about the trivial matters of the Lin family of Fuzhou City. Lin Miao sneered. Do you think you're the only ones who know that there is a secret realm on this island? Previously, the light on the surface of the sea increased greatly. The people nearby should have seen it. The deity domain is about to open, and the aura of divine power is everywhere. Soon more and more people will gather here and there will be an endless stream. You want to resist all the cultivators gathered here with just a few people? Lin Miao laughed. Don't joke around. Are you done with your nonsense? And Wushuang retorted. Do you think it's just the few of us? Let me tell you, we have 30,000 men. Heh. Lin Miao rolled her eyes. Just because she was stupid didn't mean that Mu Xiaoxue was the same. Hearing this, Mu Xiaoxue's soft and fair face suddenly flashed with a trace of surprise. She hurriedly asked, I heard not long ago that the elites of the 3 prefectures will gather at the River of Forgetfulness. Could it be that you are? This girl looks like she has a brain. And Wushuang nodded. Her gaze swept over Lin Miao's slightly darkened face with disdain. She deliberately sneered. The Lin family in Rong City is really a small family. You haven't even heard of such big news. You. Lin Miao was so angry that she was about to step forward, but her sister Lin Jinner pulled her arm. She stopped in her tracks and glared at Lin Jinner angrily. Chapter 44-48. Lin Jinner had suffered several losses at the hands of Arbor and already knew how powerful she was. Even the entire Lin family together was no match for the crown princess. How could she resist by herself? Seeing Lin Miao glaring at her, she didn't care and stepped forward with a very polite smile. Sorry for making a fool of myself. What my sister said just now is true. There is no lie. Lin Jinner looked at Arbor and said, the aura of the divine realm can be clearly felt in the nearby sea. I believe that in a moment the cultivators who are training nearby will all rush over. Arbor looked disapproving and said, oh, ending the conversation completely. Everyone in the City of Shadows and the Lin family felt a little depressed. They originally wanted to mock the other party, but in the end the 30,000 people scared all their words back. They could swallow their anger and be humble and say a few words to the other party, but in the end, the other party would completely dismiss them with a single word. There was nothing more infuriating than being ignored. Just like Lin Miao in her heart, she regarded the little crown princess as an imaginary enemy, But in the end, the person you regarded as an enemy didn't take you seriously at all. Lin Jinner hurriedly stopped Lin Muir, who still wanted to go forward and make a scene. She smiled slightly and looked at her sister with some warning in her eyes. "They're here." While they were talking, someone suddenly shouted. Arbor and the others looked up and saw more than a dozen flying spirit beasts carrying groups of people over. Hao Guang stroked his beard and looked over with disdain. Humans die for wealth and birds die for food. There were so many people who didn't care about their lives. These people probably abandoned the ship midway and came here to follow the aura. They still had the salty and wet smell of the sea breeze on their bodies. Arbor withdrew his gaze and looked at Hao Guang. "You go back first." Mu Xiaoxiu looked at Hao Guang curiously and asked softly, "May I know who this senior is?" Hao Guang glanced at the crowd and didn't have the intention to explain at all. The old man turned to Arbor and cupped his hands. "Second sect master, I'll go back first." Arbor nodded with an indifferent expression, similarly turning a deaf ear to Mu Xiaoxiu's words. This kind of attitude didn't matter to others. However, in the eyes of the two flower protectors, Zhao Yi and Gu Yishuan, it was truly intolerable. Such an innocent and adorable junior sister is courteously asking for your name, and you actually dare to not answer? This was simply intolerable. So, Zhao Yi was the first to speak. What kind of attitude is this? At the same time, more than a dozen flying spirit beasts landed on the beach at the same time. About 100 people dismounted from the backs of the spirit beasts one after another and walked towards them. Among them were some juniors from aristocratic families who had come out to gain experience. They were escorted by their elders to join in the fun. Most of them were mercenary groups and ordinary Xiuzha who were adventuring everywhere in search of opportunities. Most of the people didn't recognize Crown Prince Rong, Ming Yasi and the others, nor were they familiar with the people of the City of Shadows. Since they weren't familiar with each other, they didn't speak rashly and just maintained a wait-and-see attitude. Another 4 or 5 spirit beasts flew over and landed on the beach one after another. "Miao, a voice called out. Lin Miao turned to look and immediately smiled. "You're here too. Big brother." Gu Yisen quickly stepped forward. When she looked at Mu Xiaoxiu, her eyes flashed slightly. "Miss Mu. Big brother, what are you doing?" Chapter 44-49. Gu Yisen glanced over suspiciously, only to see Gu Yishuan and Zhao Yi standing in front of a skinny old man. Their faces were filled with anger. Gu Yishuan only had time to take a glance at his younger sister before glancing away, still glaring at Hao Guang. Hao Guang was simply baffled and looked at the little stoic standing on the side. Is there something wrong with these people? Why are they blocking this old man's path? Arbor's expression was unperturbed and she didn't even bother to blink. "Ignore them. Go." Zhao Yi's face darkened and he summoned his gray sword in the blink of an eye. Arbor, who had been ignoring them, gradually darkened her expression, and her voice as cold as ice slowly rang out. "You want to die?" Everyone's heart skipped a beat, and they inexplicably felt a heavy pressure assault them. A portion of itinerant cultivators and mercenaries hastily retreated, their faces revealing incredulous expressions. This young lady in front of them actually made their chests constrict with just her aura, making them practically unable to breathe. They absolutely couldn't carelessly offend such a young lady with such outstanding cultivation. At least, those with discerning eyes immediately thought that the little stoic must be on good terms with this person. "Just say it if you want to die." Arbor beckoned and the thunderclap sword abruptly landed in her hand. The sword suddenly lit up and a trace of lightning slowly circulated on it. Zhao Yi instantly became vigilant, and he slowly took a step back with the spirit sword in his hand. Meanwhile, Gu Yishuan was enraged and took a step forward. "Don't tell me you want to commit violence in public? We're people from the City of Shadows, we're not under your control." "Senior brother Gu." Mu Xiaoxiu hastily went up to stop him and nodded apologetically at Arbor. "Sorry. Senior brother is a bit irritable because he can't bear to see me wronged." Arbor looked at her strangely. The more she looked at her, the more she resembled a person. That person was also this gentle and soft all the time. She didn't even bear to speak loudly, as if she would trample ants to death if she breathed loudly. "Can you guys stay away from me?" The little stoic looked at them speechlessly. "My temper really isn't that good." When I get angry, I might not even be able to control myself. Everyone was speechless. Also, Miss Imo, your voice is too soft. I can't hear you. Pooh. Princess Wushuang was amused. She wished for nothing more than to pounce on the little stoic and hug her while shouting, "Great minds think alike." She had long had enough of this group of strange people. Your brother and sister are close to each other. Can't you find a secluded place and enjoy yourself alone? Why do you have to put on such a show in front of them? Who doesn't have a man with good looks and temperament by their side? Was there a need to show off like this? Bah. And Wushuang realized that she was thinking too much. She guiltily looked at Third Fu, who was standing beside her. Third young master Fu sharply noticed the look his wife was giving him. He quickly turned his head and smiled at her. Wife, Princess Wushuang immediately turned her head around. Her face was inexplicably hot. This guy was getting more and more shameless recently. Ever since the betrothal ceremony, this guy started to indulge himself more and more. Every time he saw her, he would randomly call her wife, and look at her with flirtatious eyes from time to time. The stinky shameless guy. Hao Guang saw that his second-generation sect master was imposing and didn't look like someone who would suffer losses, so he relaxed. He turned his head and whispered a few words to her. Then he turned around and led Anyang and the others toward the karst cave. Chapter 4450. However, they had only taken a few steps when they suddenly heard a huge tremor coming from the depths of the ground. The sound was so close that it seemed to have exploded under their feet. The huge impact made everyone's expression freeze slightly. The mercenaries and itinerant cultivators on the beach all showed a vigilant look and summoned their swords and sabers from their consciousness. Boom! The huge tremor came from under their feet again. The old man scattered light, widened his eyes and looked into the distance in a daze. He saw that a huge hole had been broken in the ground by something and thick smoke was coming out from it. It was so choking that everyone took a few steps back. Could it be that some giant beast was going to climb up from the bottom of the hole? Everyone's expression was solemn and cautious. They tightened their grip on the swords and sabers in their hands for no reason. Senior. And Yang could not help but call out, "Is there another guardian beast here?" Senior scattered light looked at the hole in confusion for a while and racked his brains to think. Smoke was still billowing from the hole not far away, but nothing was climbing out. The old man quickly shook his head and said, "I've never heard of it." No, it was because he had lived here for so many years and he had never encountered any giant beast. There are indeed giant beasts in the Tianji mystic realm, but I have never released them. He would not go so far as to deceive them to such an extent. If all the big guys in the mystic realm were to be released, the old man could not help but shudder. He had not lived such a peaceful life all these years. Everyone thought so too. If the senior released something, he would definitely tell the second-generation leader in advance. After all, in the senior's heart, the second-generation leader was the most important. In the old man's eyes, even a strand of hair of the second-generation leader of the Xuanji sect was more precious than them. Boom. 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 While everyone was whispering and asking each other, a few more tremors were heard. This time they could not help but sway from side to side. Arbor glanced at the huge hole. He saw a familiar figure jump out from the hole. Then he spat twice and wiped the dust off his face. Immediately after, another person came out, his sleeves fluttering as he swept the thick smoke in front of him. Both of them were dressed in black robes. Their appearances were handsome and slender, but at this moment, their robes were stained with a lot of dust. A thick smell of smoke lingered around their bodies, making them look somewhat comical. Without waiting for the crowd to recover, they saw the two people walking like the wind, one in front and one behind in their direction. When they saw Sir Jojo's expressionless face, the two of them moved even faster, and in the blink of an eye, they were already in front of the little crown princess. Jojo. Jojo, what a coincidence. A certain crown princess's small face was expressionless, and no one could see any other emotions. And Wushuang's eyes widened and she couldn't help but burst out laughing. "Oh my god, big brother. What's wrong with you, big brother? How did you climb out of that hole? Ah, look at you look so pathetic." Could it be that senior was right and the two of you fell into the 1,000 caves and 10,000 caves? Get lost. Mo Lian glanced speechlessly at the troublemaker Princess Wushuang, and threw a warning look at Third Fu. "Third young master Fu, what did I do? You can't control your sister's mouth, so you're glaring at me? Pa. Princess Wushuang did not know how to restrain herself and continued to laugh at her brother. Chapter 44-51. It couldn't be helped. He was normally upright, clean and handsome. It was rare to see him in such a sorry state. If she didn't properly dig at him, how could she live up to her venomous tongue? Ah! Shut up. Emolian irritably glared at his younger sister who was dragging him down before turning to look at his wife with bright eyes. His wife was still the best. She never mocked her husband. Arbor imperceptibly took a step back. His pitch-black eyes swiveled as his gaze roamed over the two people. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal immediately widened his eyes and whipped Emolien's arm with his finger. She's despising us. Did you see that? She retreated. She's despising you. You were contaminated by the deep fire heart-gnawing worm just now. Stinky. Emolien rebuked the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal with a frosty expression before taking a step forward. Sir Jojo stood there stiffly without moving. He blinked, his gaze landing on the dust on the crown prince's long hair. Then he suddenly took out something like a rag from his inner world. The little stoic raised her hand to wipe the crown prince's head. Everyone, Prince Emo silently twitched his mouth. He didn't know whether to laugh or cry as he pulled down his wife's hand. Jojo, do you know that rotten Peach Blossom and I are really miserable? Right, it's really miserable, my Jojo. I want to take a bath right now. I want to change clothes. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal hastily clamored behind them. Before Arbor could reply, old man Hao Guang, who was standing nearby in a daze, suddenly jumped up and shouted while pointing at the two people, You two. Hey, you two brats. Could it be that you really came out from the 1,000 caves? Who is this person? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal turned to look at the jumping old man and asked in confusion. Arbor waved the rag at him. The venerable immortal was speechless. He caught the rag the little fellow threw and wiped the dust on his sleeves. Arbor pointed at Hao Guang. Xuanji School's first-generation disciple Hao Guang. She didn't lower her voice when she spoke, so everyone around heard her. A person who looked like an elder of an aristocratic family quickly walked out of the crowd and saluted with his hands cupped. Hao Guang. Is it the legendary artifact master Senior Scattered Light? Hao Guang ignored him and glared at Emolien and the venerable Peach Blossom Immortal. Brat. Didn't you hear what I said? How did you get out just now? The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal raised his head and smiled at the old man. Didn't you see? Of course it was blasted all the way out. Hao Guang looked at them in astonishment. 1,000 caves. If you're talking about the karst cave, then it should be. The venerable Peach Blossom Immortal thought for a while and nodded. When did you fall in? How long did it take you to come out? The old man asked anxiously with a cold expression. Emolien looked at the old man who was jumping up and down. Her expression was very calm. It took more than 2 hours. Impossible. The old man immediately waved his hands agitatedly. His skinny old face was filled with disbelief. Absolutely impossible, impossible. To think that this old man, who is so smart and skilled in drawing, spent more than 3 months in the 1,000 caves and 10,000 caves before coming out. How could these two brats, how could it be? Impossible, absolutely impossible. The old man shook his head and waved his hands. He put his hands on his hips and shouted coldly at the two of them, Nonsense. How dare you lie to me? Tell me, how did you get out of the 1,000 caves in 2 hours? Tell me. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.